The airstrike is inbound. The target is already dead. Brill Wingfield has 24 hours to prove otherwise. The Venezuelan Conflict. An action thriller. Chapter 1. The phone on the nightstand didn't ring. It didn't vibrate. It pulsed with a dull red light that Brill Wingfield felt before he saw it. He was awake instantly. 0300. The hour when the world was darkest and the monsters were busiest. He picked up the device. It was a secure satellite uplink, encrypted with algorithms that changed every 6 seconds. Only one person had the frequency. "Talk," Brill said. His voice was gravel but clear. "We have a situation," Carver said. No pleasantries. No, "How are you?" Carver was a man who viewed small talk as a tactical error. "Where?" "Caracas." Brill sat up. The air in his Miami apartment was cool, conditioned to a sterile 70 degrees, but the word brought heat with it. Humidity. Chaos. "The airstrike," Brill said. "I saw the news alerts. State Department is denying it, which means it's happening." "It's happening in 24 hours, Carver said. "Precision munitions on key military infrastructure. Communications. Radar sites. The goal is to cripple the command structure so the opposition can arrest the president without a civil war." Sounds messy. It's about to get messier. The arrest warrant is based on a sealed indictment. Trafficking. Money laundering. Crimes against humanity. The evidence is rock solid. So arrest him. "We can't. Not without the witness." Brill stood up and walked to the window. The city lights of Miami sprawled below him, a grid of gold and neon. Somewhere out there, people were sleeping. People who thought laws meant something. "Who is the witness?" Brill asked. "Mateo Velasquez. Former chief of intelligence. He defected in place 6 months ago. He's the one who gave us the bank accounts, the flight logs, the names of the generals on the cartel payroll." "Where is he?" "He's under house arrest. In Miraflores. The presidential palace. A fortress in the center of a city that was currently eating itself alive." "Let me guess," Brill said. "The narco generals know he talked. They suspect. And when the first bomb drops, they're going to use the chaos to clean house. Velasquez is at the top of the list. If he dies, the chain of evidence breaks. The indictment collapses. The president walks, and the U.S. looks like an aggressor without cause. You want me to get him out. I want you to extract him before the first missile hits. You have a 24-hour window. In and out. No footprint. Caracas is a war zone, Carver. The airport is locked down. The borders are closed. That's why I'm calling you. You don't need an airport. You need a boat. And a contact. Rachel Vance. CIA analyst. She's inside the embassy. She has the intel on the palace. The guard rotations. The holding cell location. Does she have a team? She has a desk and a secure server. She's an analyst, Brill. Not an operator. You're the operator. You go in alone. You get Velasquez. You get out. If I get caught, you're a mercenary. A rogue element. The agency will disavow you before your cuffs are locked. Brill looked at his reflection in the glass. The scar on his chin was a white line in the dark. He looked tired. He always looked tired. 24 hours, Brill said. The clock started 5 minutes ago. There's a go-fast boat waiting at a private dock in Key Largo. Fully fueled. Equipment is on board. Who's the pilot? You are. Brill smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. "Send the file," Brill said. "Already sent." Brill hung up. He walked to the closet. He didn't pack clothes. He packed tools. A ceramic knife. A lockpick set. A med kit with trauma dressings and morphine syrettes. He put on dark cargo pants, a black moisture-wicking shirt, and boots that were broken in but sturdy. He grabbed his passport, the one that said he was a Canadian oil consultant named Arthur Vance, just in case. He drove to Key Largo in silence. The highway was empty, a ribbon of concrete over the black water. The boat was there. A 40-foot midnight express with quadruple outboards painted matte black. It looked like a shadow floating on the water. He climbed aboard. Checked the fuel. Checked the navigation system. A Pelican case was strapped to the deck. He opened it. Inside was a suppressed SIG P226. 5 magazines. A tactical radio. And a sat phone. Carver was efficient. Brill started the engines. They rumbled to life, a deep throaty growl that vibrated through the hull. He cast off the lines. He pointed the bow south, toward the Caribbean, toward the coast where the mountains rose straight out of the sea. 24 hours. To cross an ocean. Infiltrate a city on the brink of collapse. Break into a presidential palace. And steal a man who was already dead. Brill pushed the throttles forward. The boat surged, lifting onto plane. The wind hit him, warm and salty. He wasn't thinking about the politics. He wasn't thinking about the indictment. He was thinking about the map of Caracas. The streets he knew from a lifetime ago. The way the barrios climbed the hills like a cancer. It was going to be tight. And if he was late, the airstrike wouldn't just kill the bad guys. It would bury the truth. Brill checked his watch. The timeline was burning. He drove into the night, a single black speck moving against the vast, indifferent ocean. Chapter 2. The crossing from Key Largo to the Venezuelan coast was a blur of black water and engine noise. Brill stood at the helm of the Midnight Express, his body absorbing the shock of every wave as the boat hammered south at 50 knots. He bypassed Cuba to the east, swinging wide into the Atlantic before cutting back toward the Lesser Antilles. He refueled at sea from a bladder tank strapped to the deck, the smell of gasoline mixing with the salt spray. By the time the sun began to bleed over the eastern horizon, he was in Venezuelan waters. The coast appeared as a dark smudge against the lightening sky. La Guaira, the port city that clung to the edge of the continent like a barnacle, squeezed between the ocean and the towering wall of the Avila mountain range. Brill throttled back. The roar of the engines dropped to a low burble. He checked the GPS. The cove Carver had marked was 5 miles west of the main port. A smuggler's inlet used by drug runners moving product north. Today, it was moving a problem south. He guided the boat into the shallows. The water here was calm, protected by a rocky headland. He saw the flash of a signal light from the shore. 3 quick pulses. Brill flashed his running lights once. He cut the engines and let the boat drift onto the sand. 2 men waded out to meet him. They were local fishermen, or at least they dressed the part. Rough clothes, weathered faces, eyes that constantly scanned the tree line. One of them held a line. The other held a rusted AK-47. Brill stepped off the bow into waist-deep water. He held his hands up, empty. "Miguel sent me," Brill said in Spanish. The man with the gun nodded. "He didn't lower the weapon. The boat stays here. We sink it if you don't come back in 24 hours. "If I don't come back," Brill said, "you can keep it. It's worth $500,000. The man smiled, revealing a gold tooth. "Then we hope you are delayed." They led him up the beach to a dirt track hidden in the mangroves. A truck was waiting. A Toyota Helix that had been painted 3 different colors and stripped of anything that wasn't essential for locomotion. "Keys are in it," the man said. "Papers in the glove box. They are good enough for the Guardia Nacional if you don't look them in the eye." "And the road?" "The highway is closed. Checkpoints every 5 kilometers. You have to take the old road. Through the mountains. It is slow. Dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "Landslides. Bandits. And the collectivos." The collectivos. State-sponsored motorcycle gangs that acted as the government's enforcers. They controlled the barrios, the roads, and the fear. "I'll manage," Brill said. He got in the truck. It smelled of stale tobacco and fish. He started the engine. It coughed a cloud of black smoke, but settled into a steady rattle. He drove out of the cove, hitting the paved road that ran along the coast. He turned east toward the mountains. The sun was fully up now. The heat was already building, a wet blanket that pressed down on the windshield. He reached the turnoff for the old road. It was barely a road at all, just a ribbon of cracked asphalt winding up into the jungle. He started the climb. The truck groaned in low gear. The vegetation closed in on both sides, a wall of green. Brill kept his eyes moving. The mirrors. The road ahead. The ridgelines. He saw the first checkpoint 5 miles up. 2 soldiers in green fatigues stood by a barrier made of oil drums and razor wire. They looked bored, swatting at flies with their rifles. A small shack sat by the road, a radio blaring salsa music. Brill slowed. He rolled down the window. "Buenos dias," he said. The soldier nearest him walked over. He was young, maybe 19. His uniform was too big. He looked at Brill, then at the truck. "Papers," the soldier said. Brill handed over the packet he'd found in the glove box. Registration. Insurance. And an ID card, identifying him as an engineer for a water purification company. The soldier glanced at them. He handed them back. "Where are you going?" "Caracas," Brill said. "Service call. The pumps are failing in Altamara." "Everyone is going to Caracas," the soldier said. "The city is closed." "Water doesn't care about politics," Brill said. He reached into the center console. He pulled out a carton of American cigarettes. "Marlboros. For your trouble." The soldier's eyes lit up. He took the carton. He waved at his partner to lift the barrier. "Go," the soldier said. "But be careful. The mountain is angry today." Brill drove through. He checked the mirror. The soldiers were already tearing open the cigarettes. Cheap bribes. The currency of a failed state. He continued climbing. The air grew thinner, cooler. The city of La Guaira shrank to a toy village far below. 10 miles later, the road narrowed. A landslide had taken out half the lane. Brill navigated the truck around the debris, the wheels inches from a drop that fell 1,000 feet into the canopy. He rounded a bend and hit the brakes. The road was blocked. Not by soldiers. By motorcycles. 6 of them. Parked across the asphalt. Men sat on them, engines idling. They wore civilian clothes, but they carried automatic weapons. Red berets. Armbands. Collectivos. They weren't looking for bribes. They were looking for targets. One of them, a man with a scar running through his eyebrow, revved his engine and rode toward the truck. He stopped at the driver's window. He had a submachine gun slung across his chest. "Turn around," the man said. "No greeting. No politeness." "I have work in the city," Brill said. "The city belongs to the people today," the man said. "No foreigners." I'm not a foreigner. I'm a worker. You have blue eyes, the man said. You smell like soap. You are a gringo. He raised the weapon. Get out of the truck. Brill looked at the man. He looked at the 5 others blocking the road. He opened the door. He stepped out. Hands on the hood, the man ordered. Brill placed his hands on the hot metal. The man moved behind him. He felt the barrel of the gun press against his spine. Search him, the man shouted to his friends. 2 others walked over. They were laughing. They thought this was a game. A shakedown. They reached for his pockets. Brill moved. He spun to his left, batting the gun barrel away. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it until the bone snapped. The man screamed. Brill didn't stop. He pulled the man into him, using him as a shield. The other 2 hesitated. Brill drew the cig from his waistband. He fired over the man's shoulder. 2 shots. 2 hits. The approaching men dropped. The man in Brill's grip struggled, reaching for a knife on his belt. Brill drove an elbow into his temple. The man went limp. Brill shoved him away. He raised the cig. The 3 men on the motorcycles were scrambling for their weapons. Brill shot the first one in the chest. The second one revved his bike, trying to run. Brill shot the rear tire. The bike skidded, throwing the rider. The last man fired a burst from an AK-47. Bullets sparked off the truck's hood. Brill dropped to a knee. He aimed. He fired. The last man fell backward off his bike. Silence returned to the mountain. Just the idling of the motorcycles and the wind in the trees. Brill stood up. He scanned the scene. 6 down. He walked over to the man who had stopped him. He was groaning, clutching his broken wrist. Who sent you? Brill asked. Go to hell, the man spat. I'm already there, Brill said. He knocked the man out with the butt of the gun. He dragged the bodies off the road, pushing them over the embankment. He kicked the motorcycles into the ditch. He got back in the truck. He checked his watch. 0900. He was still an hour from the city limits. And the reception committee had just been canceled. He put the truck in gear. The road to Caracas was open. Chapter 3. The truck rattled and groaned as it descended into the concrete bowl of Caracas. The city was a sprawling wound, bleeding smoke into the hazy sky. From the heights, it looked like a gray scab covering the valley floor, shantytowns climbing the hills like a rash. Brill navigated the winding roads, keeping the helix in low gear to spare the brakes. The air grew thicker, hotter, smelling of exhaust, burning trash, and the distinct metallic tang of tear gas. He checked the dashboard clock. 1000. He had 14 hours left. The traffic thickened as he approached the outskirts. Cars were gridlocked, abandoned, or burning. People were everywhere, walking, running, shouting. It wasn't just a protest, it was a migration. A desperate tide of humanity, trying to find safety or food or vengeance. Brill kept his head down, a baseball cap pulled low. He wasn't a gringo anymore. He was just another man in a dirty truck, trying to get somewhere before the world ended. He reached the first barrio, Petare. It was a maze of red brick and corrugated tin, power lines tangled overhead like black spaghetti. The road was blocked. A bus had been turned sideways and set on fire. Black smoke billowed into the air, choking the street. Brill stopped the truck. He couldn't go forward. He couldn't turn around. He got out. He grabbed his bag from the passenger seat. He slung it over his shoulder. He left the truck unlocked, keys in the ignition. Someone would take it. Someone would need it. He walked into the crowd. The noise was deafening. Chanting. screaming. The pop 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 of tear gas canisters being fired by the National Guard down the block. Abajo el dictador, the crowd roared. Brill moved with the flow. He didn't push. He drifted, a leaf in a river. He kept his hands visible, empty. A woman grabbed his arm. She was crying, holding a picture of a young man. "Amajillo," she screamed. "Have you seen him? The colectivos took him." Brill shook his head. "No. Lo siento." He kept moving. He needed to get to the diplomatic district. Valle Arriba. It was 5 miles away, uphill through the heart of the chaos. He ducked down a side alley. It was quieter here, shadowed by the leaning buildings. A dog barked at him from a balcony. He checked his map. He knew the city from a job 10 years ago, but cities changed. Especially cities at war. He found a stairway that cut up the hillside. Steep concrete steps, cracked and covered in trash. He climbed. Halfway up, he stopped. 3 men stood on the landing above him. They weren't protesters. They were young, hard-eyed, wearing bandanas over their faces. One held a machete. Another held a pistol that looked like it had been dug out of the ground. "Toll," the man with the machete said. Brill stopped 2 steps down. He looked at them. They were hungry, desperate, dangerous. "I have no money," Brill said. "Everyone has money," the man said. He pointed the machete at Brill's bag. "Give me the bag." "You don't want the bag," Brill said. "Give it to me." The man with the pistol stepped forward. He raised the gun. It was a rusty revolver. Brill didn't wait. He moved up the steps. Fast. He grabbed the gun hand, twisting it outward. The gun fired, the shot hitting the wall. Brill drove his knee into the man's stomach. The man folded. The machete swung. A clumsy overhead chop. Brill blocked it with his forearm, catching the man's wrist. He punched the man in the throat. The man gagged, dropping the blade. The third man hesitated. He saw his friends go down. He saw Brill's eyes. He turned and ran up the stairs. Brill ignored him. He stepped over the groaning men. He didn't kill them. They were just symptoms of the disease. He continued climbing. He reached the top of the stairs and emerged onto a street that overlooked the valley. The view was apocalyptic. Smoke columns rose from a dozen points across the city. Helicopters circled like vultures. He was closer to Valle Arriba now. He could see the U.S. Embassy in the distance, a fortress on a hill surrounded by high walls and razor wire. But the streets leading to it were blocked by National Guard armored personnel carriers. Soldiers in riot gear stood in phalanxes, shields locked. He couldn't walk through them. He needed another way. He remembered Carver's briefing. The sewer access. He pulled out his phone. He checked the schematics Carver had sent. Access point, storm drain. Quebrada Baruta. South side. He oriented himself. The quebrada was a concrete channel that ran through the city, carrying runoff and sewage. He moved toward it. He had to cross a main avenue. It was a battleground. Protesters throwing stones. Soldiers firing rubber bullets and gas. Brill pulled his shirt over his nose. The gas stung his eyes, his throat. He coughed, tears streaming down his face. He ran across the street, dodging a Molotov cocktail that shattered on the pavement near his feet. He reached the edge of the channel. It was a 20-foot drop to the concrete bed below. A trickle of black water ran down the center. He found a maintenance ladder. He climbed down. The air in the channel was cooler, but it smelled of rot. He walked upstream. The sounds of the riots faded, replaced by the echo of his own footsteps and the drip of water. He checked the map again. 500 meters. West wall. He counted his paces. He found it. A large metal grate set into the wall of the channel. It was rusted shut. Brill took out a small pry bar from his bag. He jammed it into the frame. He leaned his weight into it. The metal groaned. A flake of rust fell into the water. He pushed harder. The grate popped open with a screech of tearing metal. Darkness inside. The smell was worse here. Confined. Brill turned on his tactical light. He stepped into the tunnel. He was inside the perimeter, or close to it. He moved through the sewer. Rats scurried away from the light. The water was ankle-deep, sludge sticking to his boots. He walked for 20 minutes. Then he reached a junction. A ladder led up to a manhole cover. He checked the GPS. This was it. Inside the embassy grounds. The maintenance yard. He climbed the ladder. He listened. Silence. He pushed the manhole cover up. It was heavy iron. He slid it to the side. Daylight flooded in. He pulled himself up. He was in a fenced-off area behind the main generator building. Stacks of crates. Fuel drums. He replaced the cover. He stood up and dusted off his clothes. He looked around. A security camera was mounted on the corner of the building. It was panning slowly. Brill timed it. He moved when it turned away. He sprinted to the door of the generator building. It was locked. He used his pick set. 5 seconds. He slipped inside. The hum of the generators was loud. He moved through the machinery room to the inner door. This one required a keycard. Brill took out the device Carver had given him. A spoofer. He held it to the reader. Red light. He tried again. Red light. "Come on," Brill whispered. He adjusted the frequency. Tried again. Green light. The lock clicked. He opened the door. He was in a hallway. Beige walls. Tile floor. It looked like a hospital or a school. He checked the map. Rachel Vance was in the basement server room. Section C. He was in Section A. He walked down the hall. He kept his head down, acting like he belonged there. He passed a janitor pushing a cart. The janitor didn't look up. He reached the stairwell. He went down. 1 flight. 2. Basement level. The air here was cold, conditioned for the servers. He found the door. Server room 4. Authorized personnel only. He knocked. A specific rhythm. Tap. Tap tap. Tap. The door opened. A woman stood there. She was young, maybe 30. Sharp features. Glasses. She wore a lanyard with a security clearance badge. She looked at Brill. At his dirty clothes. At the bag over his shoulder. "You're late," she said. "Traffic was bad," Brill said. "Get in." She pulled him inside and closed the door. The room was filled with racks of blinking lights. The hum of fans was constant. "I'm Rachel Vance," she said. She didn't offer a hand. She walked to a workstation and sat down. "Brill Wingfield. I know who you are. Carver sent your file. It's colorful. I tried to keep it interesting." "Interesting gets people killed," she said. She typed on her keyboard. A map appeared on the large monitor on the wall. It was a 3D schematic of a building. Miraflores. The presidential palace. "This is the target," she said. "We have 22 hours until the first tomahawk hits the comms tower. If Velasquez isn't out by then, he's dead." Where is he? Rachel zoomed in on the map. She highlighted a section in the east wing. Here. Guest quarters. Second floor. It used to be a suite for visiting dignitaries. Now it's a gilded cage. Security. Tight. Presidential guard at the doors. Cameras in the halls. And motion sensors on the windows. And the narcos. General Rossi has his own men inside. They're not guard. They're mercenaries. Cartel hitters. They're patrolling the perimeter and the lower levels. They don't trust the president's men. So I have 2 armies to dodge. 3, she said. The collectivos are guarding the outer walls. If you make a noise, they swarm. Brill studied the map. He looked for weaknesses. Vents. Tunnels. Service entrances. There's a way in, he said. There's always a way in. There is, Rachel said. But you're not going to like it. Try me. The sewers, she said. The storm drains connect to the old colonial drainage system. There's an outflow pipe that runs directly under the palace gardens. I just came from a sewer, Brill said. I'm getting used to the smell. This one is different, she said. It's booby-trapped. Pressure plates. Tripwires. Rossi knows about it. He rigged it. Can you disable them? No. They're analog. Old school. You have to clear them by hand. Brill nodded. Fine. What about the exit? That's the hard part, Rachel said. Once you have Velasquez, you can't go back down the drain. He's 60 years old. He can't climb. So we walk out the front door. We drive, she said. There's a motor pool in the basement. Armored SUVs. If you can get to one, you might be able to ram the gate. Might. It's a heavy gate, Brill. But it's your best shot. She handed him a small earpiece. This connects to my secure channel. I'll be your eyes. I can tap into the palace cameras. I can tell you where the patrols are. But I can't shoot for you. I brought my own gun. Good. Because you're going to need it. She looked at him. Her expression softened, just for a second. Carver says you're the best, she said. Carver lies. Prove him right. Get Velasquez out. Or this whole country burns for nothing. Brill put the earpiece in. I'm going, he said. He turned to the door. Wingfield, she called out. He stopped. The strike, she said. It's not just tomahawks. It's special forces. If you're still in the blast zone when they arrive, they won't know you're friendly. I'm never friendly, Brill said. He walked out. Back into the hall. Back toward the sewer. Chapter 4. The sewer tunnel ended in a concrete box, 4 feet square and smelling of chemical runoff. Brill pushed the heavy steel grate aside. It swung open on rusted hinges that hadn't moved in a decade, dropping flakes of corrosion into the black water below. He climbed out. He was in the embassy compound. Specifically, the maintenance yard behind the main generator building. It was a utilitarian space filled with fuel drums, spare parts, and the hum of diesel engines, keeping the diplomatic mission powered while the city grid flickered and died. Brill stayed low, moving behind a stack of pallets. He checked the perimeter. High walls topped with razor wire. Cameras on every corner. Marine guards patrolling the roof. It was a fortress designed to keep the chaos of Caracas out. But he was already in. He scanned the yard. A security camera swept the area in a slow, mechanical arc. Brill timed it. 10 seconds left to right. 5 seconds blind spot. He moved. He sprinted to the side door of the generator building. It was locked. He used his pick set. The lock was heavy-duty, but the mechanism was standard. 3 pins. Click. 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 The door opened. He slipped inside. The noise of the generators was deafening here. He moved through the machinery room, past the massive diesel engines, to the inner door leading to the main building. This one had a card reader. Brill pulled the spoofer Carver had given him. He held it to the reader. Red light. He adjusted the frequency. Tried again. Green light. He opened the door and stepped into a sterile beige hallway that could have been in any office building in Virginia. He checked his map. Rachel Vance was in the basement. Server room 4. He took the stairs. 2 flights down. The air grew cooler as he descended. The basement level was quiet, the hum of servers replacing the roar of the generators. He found the door. Authorized personnel only. He knocked. The specific rhythm Carver had given him. The door opened. A woman stood there. She was young, sharp-featured, wearing glasses and a lanyard. She looked at Brill, at his dirty clothes, his bag, the sweat on his face, with cool detachment. "You're late," Rachel Vance said. "Traffic," Brill said. "Get in." She pulled him inside and locked the door. The room was a cave of blinking lights and humming fans. Monitors lined the walls, showing news feeds, satellite maps, and internal security footage. "I'm Rachel," she said, sitting at a workstation. "Carver sent your file. It's thin. I like it thin. He says you're the best. I hope he's right. Because the timeline just collapsed." "Collapsed how?" The strike window moved up. 18 hours. Not 24. Why? Intel suggests the purge has already started. Rossi is moving his people into position. If we wait, Velasquez is dead before the first missile launches. Brill looked at the map on the main screen. A 3D schematic of Miraflores. "Where is he?" Rachel zoomed in. "East wing. Guest quarters. 2nd floor. It's a gilded cage. Presidential guard at the doors. Cameras in the halls. And the narcos. Rossi has his own mercenaries inside. They don't trust the guard. They're patrolling the perimeter and the lower levels. So I have to get past the guard, the mercenaries, and the collectivos outside." "Yes." "Easy." Rachel looked at him. "You think this is a joke?" "I think it's a job. And panic doesn't help the job. This isn't just a job. It's a country. If Velasquez dies, the evidence dies. The president walks. And the narcos win. I know the stakes." "Do you?" She stood up. "Carver says you're a ghost. A cleaner. You fix things. But you can't fix a civil war with a suppressed pistol. I'm not fixing the war. I'm extracting the witness." Brill pointed to the map. "The tunnel," he said. Carver mentioned a tunnel. "It connects the Ministry of Justice to the palace. Built for the president's escape. Rossi knows about it. He's booby-trapped it." "With what?" "Pressure plates. Tripwires. Old school. He doesn't trust electronics. I can handle tripwires. Can you handle a squad of mercenaries waiting at the other end?" "I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Or blow it up." Rachel sighed. She handed him an earpiece. "This connects to my secure channel. I'll be your eyes. I can tap the palace cameras. I can track the patrols. But if you get caught, I can't help you. The embassy will deny you exist. I'm used to not existing." Brill put the earpiece in. "One more thing," Rachel said. She pulled up a photo on the screen. A man in a general's uniform Heavy face. Cold eyes. General Marco Rossi, she said. He's the one who wants Velasquez dead. He's inside the palace now. If you see him, don't engage. Don't miss, Rachel said. Brill smiled. I never miss. He turned to the door. Wingfield, Rachel called out. He stopped. Good luck. Luck is for tourists, Brill said. He walked out. Back into the hall. Back toward the chaos. The embassy was a sanctuary, but he couldn't stay. The target was waiting. He moved through the basement, heading for the exit that would dump him back into the streets. Chapter 5. The basement of the U.S. Embassy in Caracas was a labyrinth of reinforced concrete and humming machinery that vibrated through the soles of Brill's boots. It smelled of recycled air and the faint ozone tang of high-voltage electronics. Rachel Vance didn't wait for him. She walked fast, her heels clicking on the linoleum with a sharp, rhythmic precision. Brill followed, his eyes scanning the corridor. Cameras every 10 feet. Secure doors. Marines in full combat gear at the junctions. She swiped her badge at a heavy steel door marked Secure Comms, Intel. The light turned green. Inside the room was a hive of digital warfare. Banks of servers lined the walls, their LEDs flickering in the dark. A massive screen dominated one wall, showing satellite feeds, news tickers, and a scrolling list of intercepted military communications. Rachel walked to a workstation in the corner. It was isolated, shielded. She sat down and started typing. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Carver said you were good, Rachel said, not looking up. He didn't say you were quiet. Quiet keeps you alive, Brill said. He leaned against a server rack, watching the screen. Here, she said. The main monitor shifted. A blueprint appeared. Detailed. Architectural. Miraflores, Rachel said. The presidential palace. Built in the late 19th century. Renovated in the 50s. Fortified in the 90s. She zoomed in. It's a fortress, Brill said. Walls within walls. It's a maze, Rachel corrected. And right now, it's a prison. Velasquez is here. She highlighted a section in the east wing. A suite of rooms overlooking the inner courtyard. Guest quarters, Brill said. Nice view. It's a gilded cage. He has everything he needs. Food. Wine. Internet. Except the ability to leave. Who's guarding him? Rachel tapped a key. A list of names appeared. Presidential guard at the door. 4 men. Rotated every 4 hours. They're loyal to the office, not necessarily the man in it. But inside the suite. That's different. Who's inside? Mercenaries, Rachel said. Contractors paid by General Rossi. They're not there to protect Velasquez. They're there to make sure he doesn't talk to anyone he shouldn't. Like me. Like anyone. Rossi is paranoid. He knows the indictment is coming. He knows Velasquez is the leak. Why hasn't he killed him yet? Because the president won't allow it. Not yet. Velasquez still has friends in the military. Killing him openly would start a civil war inside the barracks. Rossi needs a reason. Or an accident. Or an airstrike, Brill said. The perfect cover. Rachel turned in her chair. She looked at him. Her eyes were tired, dark circles underneath them, but they were sharp. Exactly. When the bombs hit, Rossi will claim Velasquez tried to escape. Or that he was hit by debris. It will be clean. Plausible. So, I have to get him out before the first missile. You have 18 hours, Rachel said. The strike package is already in the air. B-2s from Missouri. Tomahawks from the Caribbean fleet. Brill looked at the map again. He studied the layout. The entrances. The exits. The tunnel, he said. Show me the tunnel. Rachel hesitated. It's risky, Brill. It hasn't been used in years. We don't know the condition. Show me. She typed a command. A new layer appeared on the blueprint. A red line snaking under the palace gardens, connecting to a building 3 blocks away. The Ministry of Justice, Brill read. The basement, Rachel said. There's an archives room. Behind a false wall. The entrance is there. And the exit? Here. She pointed to a service area in the palace basement. Near the laundry. It comes up behind the main kitchen. Booby traps. Rossi knows about the tunnel. He didn't seal it because he might need it himself. But he rigged it. Pressure plates. Tripwires. Maybe gas. I'll bring a mask. Rachel stood up. She walked to a locker against the wall. She opened it. Inside was a tactical vest. A suppressed MP7. Flashbangs. And a tablet. Carver sent a care package, she said. It arrived via diplomatic pouch this morning. Brill looked at the gear. He thinks of everything. He thinks you're going to need firepower. I hope not. Shooting attracts attention. In Caracas today, shooting is background noise. But inside the palace, silence is better. She handed him the tablet. This is linked to the palace security system. I hacked the cameras. You can see what they see. Loop the feed if you have to. But only for 60 seconds at a time. Any longer, and the system reboots. 60 seconds is a lifetime. It's a heartbeat, she said. Don't waste it. Brill put on the vest. He checked the MP7. Loaded. Safety on. He put the flashbangs in his pockets. How do I get out? Brill asked. Once I have him. The motor pool, Rachel said. It's here. She pointed to the underground garage. Armored SUVs. The president's fleet. If you can get to one, you can drive out. Through the gate. Through the wall if you have to. Those trucks are tanks. Brill nodded. Simple. Nothing about this is simple, Rachel said. If you trigger an alarm, the collectivos will swarm. They're outside the walls. Waiting. I saw them on the road, Brill said. They're not waiting. They're hunting. Rachel looked at his bruised knuckles. You engaged. They engaged. I finished. She stared at him. A mixture of respect and fear. You really are a ghost, she whispered. Ghosts don't bleed, Brill said. He touched the cut on his cheek. I bleed. He picked up the bag. I'm going, he said. Wait. Rachel walked back to the screen. She pulled up a live feed of the city streets. The Ministry of Justice is surrounded, she said. Protesters. National Guard. It's a flashpoint. Chaos is cover, Brill said. Be careful, Wingfield. If you die in there, nobody is coming for your body. I know. He walked to the door. He stopped. Rachel, he said. She looked up. If I don't make it, tell Carver the boat is in a cove 5 miles west of La Guaira. He owes a fisherman some money. I'll tell him. Brill opened the door. He stepped out into the corridor. The cool air of the server room vanished, replaced by the humid, heavy atmosphere of a city holding its breath. He checked his watch. 17 hours. Chapter 6. The Ministry of Justice was a brutalist slab of concrete, rising from the chaos of downtown Caracas like a tombstone. Smoke from a burning government vehicle in the plaza drifted past its facade, coating the stone in soot. Brill stood across the street, blending into a crowd of protesters who were shouting slogans and throwing rocks at a phalanx of National Guard troops. He wore a dirty baseball cap and a faded t-shirt he'd scavenged from the maintenance yard. He looked like every other angry citizen in the square, except for the suppressed MP7 hidden under his loose jacket and the earpiece humming in his left ear. "Status?" he murmured, his lips barely moving. "You have a window," Rachel Vance said. Her voice was clear, cutting through the noise of the riot. "The protesters are pushing the perimeter on the east side. The guards are rotating to reinforce the line. That leaves the West Service entrance vulnerable." "How vulnerable?" "2 guards, both distracted, and a biometric lock on the door." "I can handle the lock. Can you handle the cameras?" "Already looped. You have 90 seconds before the system realizes the timestamps don't match." 90 seconds is a lifetime. Brill moved. He slipped away from the main body of the protest, skirting the edge of the plaza. He moved with a deceptive lethargy, a man tired of shouting, until he reached the shadows of the side alley. Then he sprinted. He covered the 50 yards to the service entrance in 6 seconds. He flattened himself against the wall next to the door. The 2 guards were there. They were watching the riot, smoking cigarettes, their rifles slung lazily over their shoulders. They were bored and scared, a dangerous combination. Brill didn't engage them. He didn't have to. He pulled a small device from his pocket, a sonic emitter. He tossed it down the alley, behind a dumpster. 3 seconds later, it emitted a high-pitched whine, like a radio feedback loop. The guards flinched. They turned toward the noise. One of them unslung his rifle and walked toward the dumpster to investigate. The other watched him. Their backs were to the door. Brill moved to the keypad. He pulled the spoofer, held it up. Green light. He opened the door, slipped inside, closed it. He was in. The service corridor was quiet, smelling of floor wax and stale coffee. He checked his watch. 60 seconds left on the camera loop. "I'm inside," Brill whispered. "Basement level," Rachel said. "Take the freight elevator. Or the stairs if you want to burn calories." "Stairs. Elevators are traps." He found the stairwell. He descended rapidly, his boots silent on the concrete. 1 flight. 2. 3. Subbasement. Archives. The air here was musty, heavy with the scent of old paper and decaying history. Rows of metal shelving stretched into the darkness, piled high with boxes of files that no one had looked at in 20 years. "Where is it?" Brill asked. "Section D," Rachel said. "Row 12. Look for a false panel behind the shelving unit. It's marked with a maintenance code, M74. Brill moved through the stacks. He used the red lens on his tactical light. Section D, Row 12. The shelf was full of dusty ledgers. Tax records 1998 to 2002. He pushed the boxes aside. The wall behind the shelf was concrete, painted gray. He looked closer. There, a small metal plate near the floor. M74. "I found the marker," Brill said. "There's a release mechanism," Rachel said. "Under the plate. A pressure switch." Brill knelt. He pressed the plate. Nothing happened. "It's stuck," Brill said. "It's old," Rachel said. "Use force." Brill stood up. He kicked the plate. Hard. A grinding sound echoed in the quiet room. A section of the wall, 3 feet wide, popped inward. It wasn't just a panel. It was a heavy steel door, disguised with concrete facing. Brill pushed it open. Darkness yawned beyond. A tunnel. Round concrete lined with pipes and cables. It smelled of damp earth and something sharper, ozone. Or explosives. I'm at the threshold, Brill said. Be careful, Rachel said. This is where Rossi's work begins. He didn't build the tunnel, but he secured it. Brill stepped inside. He pulled the door shut behind him. He was in the vein, connecting the heart of the bureaucracy to the heart of the power. He swept his light along the walls. Sensors? Brill asked. Thermal and motion, Rachel said. But they're wired into a separate grid. I can't loop them from here. You have to bypass them manually. Brill walked forward. He scanned the floor. He saw it. A thin wire, almost invisible, running along the base of the wall. Tripwire. He stepped over it. 10 yards further. A pressure plate. A slight discoloration in the concrete floor. He stepped around it. He's thorough, Brill whispered. This isn't just security. It's a kill zone. He expects an invasion, Rachel said. Or an escape. Brill moved deeper. The tunnel curved. He stopped. Ahead, the tunnel widened into a small chamber. A junction box sat on the wall. And in the center of the floor, a device. It looked like a metal canister. Wires ran from it to the junction box. Rachel, Brill said. I found something. A canister. Wired. Describe it. Cylindrical. Green markings. Cyrillic script. Gas, Rachel said. Her voice tightened. That's a VX disperser. Binary agent. If you trigger that, you're dead in 30 seconds. How do I disarm it? You don't. It's tampered. Anti-handling devices. If you touch it, it blows. If you cut the power, it blows. So I'm stuck. No, Rachel said. There's a maintenance bypass. A manual override for the ventilation system. If you can trigger the purge cycle, it creates a positive pressure wave. It might fool the sensor into thinking the tunnel is empty. Where is the override? In the junction box. But you have to pick the lock. Brill looked at the box. It was 10 feet past the canister. I have to walk past the bomb to turn off the bomb. Yes. Brill took a breath. He stepped carefully. He kept his back to the wall, as far from the canister as possible. He reached the junction box. He pulled his picks. His hands were steady. They were always steady when death was a possibility. He worked the lock. Click. He opened the panel. A red button. Emergency purge. He pressed it. A loud thunk echoed through the tunnel. Then a roar of air. The ventilation fans kicked on. A gale-force wind rushed past him. The canister didn't detonate. We're clear, Brill said. Good. Keep moving. You're halfway there. Brill walked on. The tunnel began to slope upward. The air grew warmer. He reached the end. A metal ladder leading up to a hatch. This is it, Rachel said. The service area. Behind the palace kitchen. Brill climbed the ladder. He listened at the hatch. Voices. Clattering pans. The smell of roasting meat. The kitchen is active, Brill said. Shift change is in 5 minutes, Rachel said. Wait for the lull. Brill waited. He hung on the ladder, suspended between the underworld and the seat of power. 5 minutes passed. The noise subsided. He pushed the hatch up. He peered out. A storage room. Sacks of flour. Cans of oil. Empty. He climbed out. He closed the hatch and covered it with a sack of rice. He stood up. He dusted off his clothes. He was inside Miraflores. "I'm in," Brill said. "Welcome to the lion's den," Rachel said. "Now find the lion." Brill checked the MP7. He moved to the door of the storage room. He cracked it open. A hallway. Marble floors. Portraits of past presidents on the walls. And at the end of the hall, a patrol. 2 mercenaries in black fatigues. Brill closed the door. Chapter 7. The tunnel was a concrete throat, ribbed with rusted conduit and sweating condensation. It smelled of old earth and things that had died in the dark. Brill moved fast, his MP7 tight against his shoulder. The red lens of his tactical light cut a narrow cone through the gloom, picking out the obstacles Rachel had warned him about. 10 meters in. He stopped. A tripwire. It was thin, barely a glint in the red light, strung across the floor 6 inches high. It wasn't modern fiber optic. It was piano wire, connected to a tension trigger bolted to the wall. Brill knelt. He traced the wire. It led to a claymore mine, jury-rigged and aimed down the tunnel. The front of the mine was painted with a smiley face in yellow marker. Rossi had a sense of humor. He stepped over it. Careful. Deliberate. 20 meters. The floor changed texture. Concrete gave way to a section of metal grating. Pressure plate. Brill moved to the side, pressing his back against the curved wall. He shimmed along the edge where the grating met the concrete. The metal groaned under his weight, but it didn't click. He passed it. 50 meters. The air grew stagnant. The ventilation from the ministry purge hadn't reached this far. He reached the junction box Rachel had described. The one with the VX canister. He had disarmed it. But he checked it again. Paranoia was a survival trait. The green light on the panel was steady. Safe. He moved on. The tunnel began to incline. He could feel the change in grade in his legs. He was climbing toward the palace. He reached the end. A vertical shaft. Metal rungs set into the concrete. He climbed. 10 feet. 20. He hit a steel hatch. He paused. Listened. Voices. Muffled by the heavy metal, but audible. Spanish. Rough laughter. The clatter of pans. The kitchen. Rachel's voice crackled in his ear. "You're under the service pantry," she said. "Shift change was 5 minutes ago. The night crew is skeleton. 3 cooks. 2 guards in the corridor. Cameras. 1 in the pantry. Looped. 1 in the corridor. Looped. You have 60 seconds once you breach the hatch." 60 seconds. Generous. Brill braced himself on the ladder. He pushed up on the hatch. It was heavy. Iron. He shoved. It gave with a scrape of metal on metal. He pushed it open, just enough to see. A storage room. Shelves lined with sacks of flour, rice, beans. Dim light. Empty. He pushed the hatch fully open. He hauled himself up. He was inside Miraflores. He closed the hatch. Covered it with a sack of rice, marked Ministerio de Alimentación. He stood up. He dusted the rust from his clothes. He checked the suppressor on the MP7. "I'm in," Brill whispered. "Welcome to the party," Rachel said. "Move to the door. Crack it. Check the hall." Brill moved to the door. He opened it an inch. The corridor was wide, tiled in checkered black and white marble. Portraits of liberators hung on the walls in gilt frames. It looked less like a government building, and more like a museum dedicated to ego. 2 guards stood at the far end, near a double door. They wore black fatigues. No insignia. Mercenaries. They were drinking coffee from paper cups, their rifles leaning against the wall. Mercs, Brill said. 2. Static. Avoid them, Rachel said. Go left. Service stairs. It takes you up to the second floor. East wing. Left means crossing the hall. Wait for it. Patrol coming from the right. Brill waited. Footsteps. Heavy boots. A squad of 4 soldiers marched past the intersection. Presidential Guard. Red berets. Ceremonial swords on their hips, but carrying AK-103s. They ignored the mercenaries. The mercenaries ignored them. 2 armies in one building. An uneasy truce. The patrol passed. Go, Rachel said. Brill slipped out of the pantry. He moved across the hall, silent as smoke. He reached the stairwell door. He opened it. Slipped inside. The stairwell was narrow, utilitarian. Concrete steps. Steel railing. He climbed. Second floor. He cracked the door. This hallway was different. Carpeted. Wood paneling. Sconces with electric candles. Guest quarters, Brill said. Turn right, Rachel said. Third door on the left. That's Velasquez. Guards. 4. Presidential Guard. They're posted outside the door. And there's a camera covering the approach. Loop it. Done. You have 60 seconds. Brill stepped into the hall. He walked toward the guards. He didn't run. He walked with purpose, like he belonged there. The guards saw him. They stiffened. Hands went to weapons. Halt, the lead guard shouted. Brill kept walking. Identify yourself. Brill raised his hands. He held a badge he'd taken from the dead collectivo on the mountain. A generic government ID. Special courier, Brill said in flawless Spanish. Message for the prisoner. From the president. The guard frowned. We have no orders for a courier. The president doesn't ask for permission, Brill said. He was 10 feet away. The guard hesitated. He looked at the ID. That was the mistake. Brill dropped the badge. He drew the MP7 from under his jacket. He didn't fire. The noise would be too much, even suppressed. He fired the taser he had taped to the underside of the barrel. The probes hit the lead guard in the chest. He convulsed, dropping his rifle. The other 3 guards reacted. But they were slow. Formal training made them rigid. Brill moved. He closed the distance. He swept the legs of the second guard, driving a palm strike into his chin. The guard went down hard. The third guard raised his rifle. Brill grabbed the barrel, twisting it aside. He headbutted the man. The guard crumbled. The fourth guard fumbled with his radio. Brill kicked the radio out of his hand. He punched the man in the solar plexus, then the jaw. 4 guards down. 6 seconds. He dragged them into an alcove. He zip-tied them. Taped their mouths. Clear, Brill said. Good, Rachel said. Now get inside. Before the loop resets. Brill tried the door handle. Locked. He used the pick set. Fast. Click. He opened the door. He stepped inside. The suite was luxurious. Velvet curtains. Antique furniture. A fruit bowl on the table that looked like a still life painting. Mateo Velasquez was sitting in a wingback chair, reading a book. He was 60, gray-haired, wearing a suit that looked like he'd slept in it for a week. He looked up. He saw the masked man with the gun. He didn't scream. He closed the book. He placed it on the table. Are you the executioner? Velasquez asked. His voice was calm. Resigned. I'm the exit strategy, Brill said. He pulled off his mask. Who sent you? The people you gave the bank account numbers to. We're leaving. Velasquez shook his head. Leaving is impossible. The palace is sealed. I know a way out. The tunnel. Velasquez laughed. A dry, bitter sound. Rossi mined it yesterday. I watched him sign the work order. I cleared it. Velasquez looked at him. Really looked at him. He saw the sweat. The dirt. The competence. You cleared the VX canister. I bypassed the trigger. Velasquez stood up. A flicker of hope in his eyes. Then maybe you are not an executioner. Grab your coat, Brill said. We have a plane to catch. One thing, Velasquez said. I have something. A drive. Hidden. Where? In the bathroom. Behind the mirror. Get it. Fast. Velasquez ran to the bathroom. Brill checked the hall. Clear. But then he heard it. Boots. Running. Brill, Rachel said in his ear. Patrol inbound. Mercenaries. 6 of them. They're coming to check the guard post. How long? 30 seconds. Velasquez came out of the bathroom, holding a small silver USB drive. I have it. We're blown, Brill said. The tunnel is out. We can't go back the way we came. Then where? Brill looked at the window. It overlooked the courtyard. 3 stories down. Do you trust me? Brill asked. I don't know you. Good point. Brill grabbed a heavy chair. He threw it through the window. Glass shattered. The alarm began to wail. We're going down, Brill said. He grabbed the curtain. He ripped it down. He tied it to the radiator. Climb, Brill ordered. The door to the suite burst open. Mercenaries filled the frame. Brill raised the MP7. Go, he yelled at Velasquez. He opened fire. Chapter 8. The study and the guest quarters of Miraflores smelled of old paper and the sharp, coppery scent of cordite. Brill stood with his back to the door, the MP7 raised, watching the mercenaries pile into the hallway. Bullets tore through the wood, sending splinters flying. They weren't using tactics anymore. They were using volume. Are you ready? Brill shouted over the noise. Mateo Velasquez stood by the shattered window, clutching the makeshift rope made of heavy velvet curtains. He looked down at the courtyard 3 stories below. It was dark, but the glint of weapons and the movement of patrols were visible in the shadows. I am too old for this, Velasquez said. Gravity does the work, Brill said. You just have to hold on. The door hinges groaned. A boot kicked the lock. Wood cracked. Go. Brill yelled. Velasquez didn't argue. He climbed onto the sill. He wrapped the curtain around his arm, took a breath and dropped. Brill fired a burst through the door. Suppressed thwip-thwip-thwip sounds, answered by the roar of AK-47s. He ran to the window. Velasquez was sliding down, fast and clumsy. He hit the second-floor ledge, stumbled, regained his grip, and kept going. The door burst open. 3 mercenaries charged in. Black fatigues. Balaclavas. Brill didn't wait. He vaulted onto the sill. He grabbed the curtain. He slid. The friction burned his hands even through his gloves. He dropped past the second floor. Bullets sparked off the stone wall above him. He hit the ground, rolling. He was in the inner courtyard. A manicured garden of palm trees and fountains, surrounded by the high walls of the palace. Velasquez was lying in a flower bed, groaning. My ankle, he gasped. Can you walk? I think so. Then run. Brill hauled him up. They sprinted toward the shadows of the colonnade. Above them, the mercenaries were shouting from the window. Searchlights swept the garden. "They're alerting the perimeter," Rachel said in Brill's ear. "The purge has started. Rossi just gave the order. Clean slate. They're executing the loyalists." "Where?" "Everywhere. Barracks. Offices. The hallways are killing floors." Brill dragged Velasquez into a service corridor. It was chaos. Soldiers in Presidential Guard uniforms were fighting hand-to-hand with men in black fatigues. Gunfire echoed off the marble floors. "We can't go this way," Velasquez said, pulling back. "That is the main hall." "Where do we go?" "The library. There is a service elevator. It goes to the basement." "Lead." They moved through the confusion. Brill used the MP7 sparingly. A double tap to a mercenary raising a rifle. A burst to suppress a squad moving down the stairs. He wasn't fighting the war. He was fighting a path through it. They reached the library. It was burning. Books were pulled from shelves and set on fire in the center of the room. A group of Rossi's men were executing 3 officers on their knees. Brill stopped in the doorway. "Wait," he whispered. One of the executioners raised a pistol. Bang! An officer slumped. Velasquez flinched. That was Colonel Mendez. "My friend." "We can't save him," Brill said. "We can only save you." The executioners were distracted, laughing. Brill saw the elevator. Across the room, behind the fire. "On my mark," Brill said. "Run for the doors." He pulled a flashbang from his vest. He pulled the pin. He threw it into the center of the group. Bang! White light. Screams. Now. They ran. Brill fired as he moved. He dropped 2 of the men before they could recover. The others fired wild shots that hit the bookshelves. They reached the elevator. Velasquez hit the button. Nothing. "Power is cut," Brill said. "Stairs," Velasquez said. "Behind the stacks." They ran to the back of the room. A narrow spiral staircase led down. They descended. The air grew cooler, smelling of oil and exhaust. They emerged in a concrete hallway. "This is the basement level," Velasquez said. "The garage is that way." He pointed left. But the hallway was blocked. Not by soldiers. By bodies. A dozen men in guard uniforms lay in a pile. Executed. And standing over them was a man in a general's uniform. He was tall, thick-set, with a face that looked like it had been chiseled from granite. He held a gold-plated pistol. General Marco Rossi. He was surrounded by 6 of his elite guard. They saw Brill and Velasquez instantly. "Well," Rossi said. His voice echoed in the concrete hall. "The rat comes out of his hole." Velasquez froze. "General." "Traitor," Rossi corrected. "You thought you could sell us to the Americans? You thought you could run?" "I thought I could save the country," Velasquez said, his voice surprisingly steady. "You saved nothing. You just accelerated the timeline." Rossi raised the gold pistol. "Kill them," Rossi ordered his men. Brill shoved Velasquez into an alcove. "Cover." The guards opened fire. Bullets chipped the concrete, filling the air with dust. Brill returned fire. He aimed for the lights. He shot out the overhead bulbs. The hallway plunged into darkness. "Move," Brill whispered. "Back the way we came." "We can't outrun them," Velasquez said. "We don't have to. We just have to outthink them." Brill pulled his last flashbang. He didn't throw it. He rolled it down the hall. Bang. In the confusion, Brill grabbed Velasquez and dragged him through a side door marked maintenance. They were in a boiler room. Pipes hissed steam. "Is there another way to the garage?" Brill asked. "The laundry chute," Velasquez said. "It dumps into the linen carts near the loading dock." "Show me." They ran past the boilers. They found the chute. Brill opened the hatch. It was dark, smelling of bleach. "After you," Brill said. Velasquez hesitated. Then he climbed in. He slid down. Brill followed. He slid through the darkness, twisting and turning. He landed in a pile of dirty sheets. He rolled out. He was in the laundry room. It was next to the garage. He could hear engines revving. He helped Velasquez up. "We're close," Brill said. "Rossi will follow," Velasquez said. "He won't stop." "Let him come," Brill said. "I have a surprise for him." He checked the MP7. One magazine left. He walked to the door leading to the garage. He cracked it open. Rows of black SUVs. Armored. And guards. Dozens of them. But in the center of the garage, near the ramp, was a fuel tanker. Refueling the fleet for the escape. Brill smiled. "Change of plans," Brill said. "What plans?" "We're not sneaking out," Brill said. "We're blowing our way out." He looked at Velasquez. "Can you drive?" "Yes." "Good. Pick a truck. Any truck." Chapter 9. The library service elevator was dead, but the stairs behind the stacks were alive with the sound of boots on concrete. Brill and Velasquez descended the spiral staircase, their footsteps echoing in the narrow shaft. The air grew cooler with every turn, the smell of burning books replaced by the dank, oily scent of the palace depths. "They are clearing the upper floors," Velasquez whispered, his breath ragged. "Rossi is meticulous. He starts at the top and works down." "Then we have time," Brill said. "But not much." They reached the bottom landing. A heavy steel door led to the basement level. Brill cracked it open. The hallway beyond was utilitarian. Concrete walls painted appealing institutional green. Exposed pipes running along the ceiling. It was empty. "Which way to the garage?" Brill asked. "Left," Velasquez said. "Past the maintenance workshops. Then through the laundry." "Lead." They moved down the hall. Brill kept the MP7 raised, scanning each junction. "Wait," Velasquez hissed. He stopped at an intersection. He pointed down a side corridor. "That leads to the command center. The bunker." "We're not going to the bunker." "No. But Rossi is." Brill looked down the hall. At the far end, double doors were guarded by 4 men in black fatigues. Mercenaries. But beyond them, through the glass panels, Brill saw movement. A man in a general's uniform. Thick-set. Granite face. General Marco Rossi. He was standing over a desk, shouting at a man in a suit, the president. Or what was left of him. The president looked small, terrified, shrinking back as Rossi slammed a fist onto the table. "He's taking control," Velasquez whispered. "He's forcing the resignation. Or the suicide." "It's a coup," Brill said. "Under the cover of an airstrike. We have to stop him. We have to leave. The mission is you, Mateo. Not the government." "If he takes power," Velasquez said, gripping Brill's arm, "he will burn the evidence. He will bury the bodies. The indictment won't matter if he controls the courts." "The indictment matters if you testify," Brill said. "If you die here, Rossi wins." Velasquez looked at the bunker. He looked at the man destroying his country. "He is a monster," Velasquez said. "He's a target," Brill said. "But not today." He pulled Velasquez away. Move. The garage. They continued down the main hall. They passed the workshops. Dark. Silent. They reached the laundry room. The door was open. Inside, industrial washers hummed. Carts of linens were lined up against the wall. And guards. 2 of them. Sitting on a folding table, playing cards. Their rifles were leaning against a dryer. They didn't see Brill in the doorway. Brill signaled Velasquez to stay back. He raised the MP7. He fired. 2 distinct thwips. The guards slumped over the table. The cards scattered. Clear, Brill said. He moved into the room. He checked the bodies. Dead. He looked at the far door. The one leading to the loading dock and the garage. He opened it an inch. The garage was a cavernous space, lit by sodium vapor lights that cast everything in a sickly yellow glow. Rows of black SUVs, armored Suburbans, Toyotas, and a fuel tanker in the center, refueling the fleet. Dozens of mercenaries were milling around, loading crates, checking weapons. They're preparing to move, Brill said. Rossi is evacuating or relocating. Which one is ours? Velasquez asked. Any of them. But we need a distraction. Brill looked at the fuel tanker. That's a lot of diesel, he said. You want to blow it up. I want to create a reason for them to look the other way. He scanned the room. He saw a fire alarm pull station on the wall. Too quiet, Brill muttered. He looked back at the laundry room. Chemicals. Bleach. Ammonia. Do you know how to mix a cocktail? Brill asked. Velasquez looked at the jugs of cleaning supplies. I was intelligence chief. I know how to make people talk, not how to do laundry. It's simple chemistry, Brill said. Chlorine gas. Mustard gas. It clears a room faster than a gun. You want to gas them? I want to blind them. And choke them. And make them run. Brill grabbed a bucket. He poured in the bleach. Then the ammonia. The reaction was instant. White fumes began to rise. Cover your face, Brill said. He kicked the door to the garage open. He threw the bucket. It landed in the center of the loading dock, splashing the mixture across the concrete. The cloud expanded rapidly. Heavy. Toxic. Gas, someone screamed in the garage. Gas attack. The mercenaries panicked. They grabbed their throats. They ran for the exits. Now, Brill said. He grabbed Velasquez. They ran into the garage, holding their breath, eyes stinging. They reached the nearest SUV. A black Toyota Land Cruiser. The doors were unlocked. Keys in the ignition. Get in, Brill ordered. They scrambled inside. Brill started the engine. The garage was in chaos. Men were coughing, stumbling. The white cloud was spreading. Brill slammed the truck into gear. He drove toward the ramp. A guard tried to block them, raising his rifle. Brill didn't swerve. He hit the gas. The SUV's armored bumper caught the guard, throwing him aside. They shot up the ramp. We're out, Velasquez said, coughing. We're in the courtyard, Brill corrected. They burst out into the night air. The palace grounds were a war zone. Searchlights. Gunfire. And the main gate was closed. Brill looked at the heavy iron bars. Hold on, he said. He floored it. The SUV roared. Chapter 10. The suite was a velvet coffin, opulent and suffocating. Brill stood near the shattered window, the jagged glass reflecting the frantic sweep of searchlights cutting through the darkness outside. The air in the room was thick with tension, smelling of expensive cologne, old dust, and the sharp, metallic tang of fear coming off the man in the chair. Mateo Velasquez wasn't what Brill expected. He wasn't a shivering bureaucrat hiding under a desk. He was a man who had spent 40 years in the intelligence services, and he wore his resignation like armor. He sat straight in a high-backed wing chair, hands resting on the armrests, watching Brill with eyes that had seen too many interrogations. "You cleared the tunnel," Velasquez said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "That means you have skills. But skills don't open locked doors when the keys are held by generals." "Keys can be taken," Brill said, checking the hallway through the splintered doorframe. "Or bypassed. You don't understand. Rossi isn't just a general. He's a warlord. He has consolidated power. The president is a figurehead, a ghost in his own house. And ghosts don't give orders." "I saw the president," Brill said. "In the bunker. He looked small. He is small. Rossi made him small. He took the military, then the police, then the courts. And now Rossi wants to make me disappear." "Why?" "Because I know where the money is," Velasquez said. "Not the state funds. The cartel funds. The billions Rossi skimmed from the oil shipments and the cocaine flights out of Apure. I know the accounts in Panama, in Andorra, in Moscow. You have the accounts. I have better. I have the ledger. Digital. Encrypted. It lists every bribe, every payoff, every general who sold his soul for a villa in Miami and a quiet retirement. Where is it? Safe. For now. It's not safe if you're dead." Boots hammered in the hallway. Shouts. The sound of doors being kicked in, down the corridor. They were checking rooms. Clearing the floor. "They're coming," Velasquez said. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. "Let them come," Brill said. He moved to the door. He grabbed a heavy oak chair and jammed it under the handle. It wouldn't hold them for long. A breach charge would turn it into kindling, but it would buy seconds. And seconds were the currency of survival. "We need to move," Brill said. "The window." Velasquez looked at the opening. The wind blew in, ruffling his gray hair. "I am 62 years old," Velasquez said. "I have arthritis in my knees and a bad back. I cannot climb down a curtain like a thief in the night. You can, if the alternative is a bullet in the head." "Is it?" Velasquez asked. "Maybe Rossi just wants to talk. Maybe he wants to make a deal." "Rossi doesn't make deals. He makes corpses. I saw the purge downstairs, Mateo. They're executing officers in the library. They're burning the archives. This isn't a negotiation. It's a liquidation." Velasquez paled. The reality of the coup finally penetrated his calm. "My friend," Velasquez whispered. "Colonel Mendez." "Dead?" Brill lied. He didn't know if Mendez was dead, but hope was a luxury they couldn't afford. Fear was a better motivator. "They're all dead. You're the last one." The door handle rattled. A heavy thud shook the frame. "Open up," a voice shouted. Rough Spanish. "Presidential guard." "They're not guard," Brill said. "They're mercenaries. Rossi's men." "How do you know?" Guard knocks. Mercenaries breach. Another thud. Wood splintered around the lock. The chair groaned. "Get to the window," Brill ordered. Velasquez stood up. He moved slowly, painfully. He reached the window. He looked down. It is a long way. It's 3 stories. And the bushes are soft. You break a leg, I carry you. You die here, I leave you. Brill grabbed the heavy velvet curtain. He ripped it down from the rod with a tear of fabric. He tied it to the radiator pipe. Knotted it tight. Tested it. Go. The door cracked. A boot came through the panel. Velasquez hesitated. He looked back at the room. At the life he was leaving. You said you had the ledger, Brill said. Where is it? It is on a drive, Velasquez said. Hidden. Where? In the bathroom. Behind the mirror. The vanity. Get it. Velasquez didn't move. If I get it, we lose time. If we leave it, we lose the war. Get it. Velasquez ran to the bathroom. Brill aimed the MP7 at the door. He switched the selector to full auto. The wood gave way. The door flew open, knocking the chair aside. Two men in black fatigues charged in. They were big, fast, moving with the aggression of men who expected their target to be cowering. They didn't expect Brill. Brill fired. 2 shots. 2 hits. The lead man dropped, his chest armor failing against the high-velocity rounds. The second man spun, hit in the shoulder, his rifle clattering to the floor. Clear. Brill yelled. Velasquez. Velasquez came out of the bathroom. He held a small silver drive in his hand. I have it. Pocket it. And climb. Velasquez went to the window. He grabbed the curtain. He looked at Brill one last time. Who are you? I'm the guy who doesn't miss, Brill said. Go. Velasquez climbed out. He disappeared over the sill. Brill covered him. He fired a burst into the hallway to keep the others back. He heard shouts, orders being barked. They were regrouping, preparing a grenade. He ran to the window. Velasquez was halfway down, struggling, swinging wildly. Brill didn't wait. He vaulted onto the sill. He grabbed the curtain. He slid. The friction burned his gloves. He dropped past the second floor. Bullets hit the stone wall above him, showering him with dust. He hit the ground. Rolled. Velasquez was lying in the dirt, groaning, clutching his ankle. My leg, he gasped. I think it is broken. Walk on it, Brill said. Or crawl. But move. He hauled Velasquez up. The older man cried out, but he stood. He leaned on Brill. They were in the garden. The manicured hedges and fountains looked surreal in the chaos. And the palace was waking up. Searchlights swept the grounds, long fingers of white light hunting for them. Sirens wailed, a mournful sound that echoed off the high walls. They know, Velasquez said. The alarm. Good, Brill said. Confusion is cover. If they're looking everywhere, they're looking nowhere. He dragged Velasquez toward the shadows of the colonnade. Where are we going? Velasquez asked. To the one place they won't look, Brill said. Down. The extraction was live. And the night was just getting started. Chapter 11. The laundry chute was dark, smelling of bleach and old cotton. Brill pushed the hatch open with his shoulder, wincing as the metal scraped against his back. He slid out first, landing in a pile of linens that were piled high in a plastic cart. The cart rolled back with a squeak, hitting the tiled wall of the laundry room. Brill rolled out, MP7 raised. The room was large, filled with industrial washers and dryers that were currently silent. Steam pipes hissed overhead. Clear, Brill whispered. Velasquez slid out of the chute behind him. He landed awkwardly, groaning as his bad knee hit the floor. Quiet, Brill hissed. He moved to the door. It was steel, with a small reinforced window. He peered through. A hallway. Concrete. Lit by flickering fluorescent tubes. It led to the garage. How many guards? Velasquez asked, limping to join him. I count 2 at the far end. near the blast doors. That is the main entrance to the motor pool. There will be more inside. Then we don't go through the main entrance. Brill looked around the laundry room. He saw a vent high on the wall. Too small. He saw a service elevator. Locked down. He saw the chemical storage locker. Do you know what happens when you mix bleach and ammonia? Brill asked. Velasquez looked at the jugs on the shelf. Mustard gas. Or close enough. It clears a room, Brill said. And it creates panic. It also kills people. Only if they stay. Brill grabbed a bucket. He poured a gallon of bleach into it. Get ready to move, Brill said. When the gas hits, they'll flush out. We go in against the flow. He grabbed a jug of ammonia. Cover your face, Brill ordered. Velasquez pulled his jacket up over his nose. Brill kicked the door open. The two guards at the end of the hall turned, raising their rifles. Brill didn't shoot. He threw the bucket. It landed halfway down the hall, splashing bleach across the floor. He threw the ammonia jug after it. It burst on impact. The reaction was immediate. A cloud of white, choking gas expanded rapidly, filling the narrow corridor. The guards coughed. They stumbled back, eyes watering, throats burning. They dropped their weapons, clawing at their faces. They ran for the blast doors, pounding on them to be let out. Now, Brill said. He grabbed Velasquez. They ran down the hall, holding their breath. They reached the blast doors. The guards were gone, fled into the garage. Brill hit the release button. The heavy doors groaned open. They stepped into the garage. It was a cavernous space, filled with the smell of diesel and exhaust. Rows of armored SUVs were parked in precise lines. Mechanics were working on a limo in the corner. But the gas was following them, drifting in through the open doors. Gas, someone shouted. Chemical attack. Panic rippled through the garage. Mechanics dropped their tools. Drivers scrambled out of vehicles. The mercenaries guarding the perimeter looked around, confused. Brill spotted a black Suburban near the ramp. The engine was idling. The driver's door was open. That one, Brill said. They ran. A mercenary saw them. He raised his AK-47. Halt. Brill fired the MP7. One burst. The mercenary dropped. They reached the Suburban. Brill shoved Velasquez into the passenger seat. He jumped behind the wheel. He slammed the door. Lock it, Brill said. He put the truck in gear. More guards were running toward them now. Bullets sparked off the armored glass. Brill hit the gas. The Suburban surged forward. It was heavy, sluggish, but unstoppable. He aimed for the ramp. A guard tried to block the way. He stood in the center of the lane, firing. Brill didn't swerve. The guard realized too late that the truck wasn't stopping. He dove to the side. The Suburban hit the ramp. Tires squealed on the concrete. They shot up into the daylight. They were in the rear courtyard, the service entrance. The gate was closed. A heavy iron barrier. Ram it. Velasquez asked, gripping the dashboard. No, Brill said. That gate is rated for a truck bomb. We'll just bounce off. He braked. The Suburban skidded to a halt. He looked at the guard shack next to the gate. I need the code, Brill said. I don't have it, Velasquez said. It changes daily. Then we get it. Brill opened his door. Stay here. Keep your head down. He ran to the guard shack. The guard inside was on the phone, shouting. He saw Brill coming. He reached for his pistol. Brill smashed the window with the butt of the MP7. He grabbed the guard by the collar and pulled him through the broken glass. "Open the gate," Brill shouted. "I can't. It's locked down." "Unlock it." Brill jammed the barrel of the gun under the guard's chin. "Code. Now." 7490. Brill shoved the guard away. He reached through the window and punched the code into the keypad. The gate motor whined. The iron bars began to slide open. Slowly. Too slowly. Behind him, in the courtyard, a BTR-80 armored personnel carrier was turning its turret toward them. "Move!" Velasquez screamed from the truck. Brill sprinted back to the Suburban. He jumped in. The BTR fired. Its heavy machine gun tore up the pavement where Brill had been standing a second ago. Brill slammed the truck into drive. He gunned it. The gate was half open. Just enough room. Maybe. The Suburban hit the gap. Mirrors scraped sparks off the iron bars. Metal shrieked. They popped through. They were out. On the street. Brill turned hard right, tires smoking. He accelerated down the avenue. "We made it," Velasquez breathed. "We made it out of the building," Brill said, checking the rear-view mirror. The BTR was crashing through the gate behind them. It was faster than it looked, and it had a cannon. "We're not clear yet," Brill said. He drove into the chaos of Caracas. The streets were filled with smoke and burning tires. Chapter 12. The laundry room was a chemical haze, stinging Brill's eyes and throat even through the collar of his jacket. "Let's go," Brill rasped. He grabbed Velasquez by the arm and hauled him toward the door that led to the garage. The older man was coughing, wheezing, but he moved. Brill kicked the door open. The garage was a cavernous space, echoing with confusion. The bleach and ammonia mix was drifting in, a white fog that obscured the far wall where the blast doors stood open. Mercenaries were stumbling around, covering their faces, shouting orders that nobody was following. But the confusion wouldn't last. The ventilation fans were kicking in, the hum rising to a roar as they began to cycle the air. "We have 2 minutes," Brill said. "Maybe less." He scanned the rows of vehicles. Black Suburbans. Land Cruisers. Armored beasts, designed to protect the powerful from the consequences of their power. "Which one?" Velasquez asked, his voice thin. "That one." Brill pointed to a Toyota Land Cruiser parked near the ramp. It was facing out. The engine was idling. The driver's door was open. A mercenary was leaning into the cab, coughing, trying to retrieve something from the console. Brill moved. He didn't run. Running attracted the eye. He walked fast, purposeful, like he belonged in the chaos. He reached the mercenary. "Hey," Brill said. The man turned, eyes streaming tears. He saw Brill. He saw the MP7. Brill fired. One shot. Suppressed. The man dropped. Brill shoved the body aside and climbed into the driver's seat. "Get in," he shouted to Velasquez. Velasquez scrambled into the passenger seat. He slammed the door. The sound was heavy, solid. Armored plating. Brill locked the doors. He checked the fuel gauge. Full. He put the truck in gear. "Seatbelt," Brill said. "What?" "Put your seatbelt on. We're going to hit something." Velasquez fumbled with the buckle. Brill didn't wait. He hit the gas. The Land Cruiser surged forward. It was heavy, sluggish off the line, but once it had momentum, it was a wrecking ball. A group of mercenaries near the ramp saw them moving. They raised their weapons. "Contact," one shouted. Bullets sparked off the windshield. The glass spider-webbed but held. "Stay down," Brill yelled. He aimed for the ramp. A guard tried to block the way. He stood in the center of the lane, firing an AK-47. He thought the uniform and the gun made him a wall. He was wrong. Brill didn't swerve. He kept his foot on the floor. The guard realized too late that the laws of physics didn't care about his authority. He tried to jump. The bumper caught him. A dull thud. He vanished under the wheels. The truck bucked as it rolled over him. They hit the ramp. Tires squealed on the concrete. The engine roared, pushing the heavy vehicle up the incline. They burst out into the rear courtyard. Daylight, or what passed for it, in Caracas. Smoke choked the sky, turning the sun into a hazy orange disk. The courtyard was a staging area. Trucks, crates, soldiers running toward the palace. And the gate. It was closed. A heavy iron barrier topped with spikes. The code. Velasquez shouted. We need the code. No time, Brill said. He looked at the gatehouse. The guard was inside, on the phone. He looked up, saw the Land Cruiser barreling toward him. He hit a button. Not the open button. The alarm button. Sirens wailed. A red light began to flash. Brill looked in the rearview mirror. Something was coming up the ramp behind them. A BTR-80. An 8-wheeled armored personnel carrier with a 14.5 mm heavy machine gun in the turret. Rossi sent the cavalry, Brill said. The BTR fired. Thump, thump, thump. The rounds tore up the pavement next to the Land Cruiser. Chunks of asphalt flew into the air. Ram the gate. Velasquez screamed. It's too strong, Brill said. We'll bounce. He slammed on the brakes. The Land Cruiser skidded, stopping 10 feet from the iron bars. What are you doing? Improvising. Brill looked at the fuel drum standing near the gatehouse. A 55-gallon drum of diesel for the generators. He rolled down the window an inch. He raised the MP7. He fired a burst at the drum. Punctures. Diesel sprayed out. Now the spark, Brill muttered. He grabbed a flashbang from his vest. He pulled the pin. He threw it out the window. It landed in the spreading pool of fuel. Bang! The flash ignited the diesel. A wall of fire erupted. The guard in the shack screamed and ran out the back. The fire engulfed the gate mechanism. The hydraulic arm hissed and popped. Brill waited. The BTR was closing. Its machine gun traversed, locking onto them. The gate groaned. The hydraulic pressure failed. The iron bars sagged, swinging open a few feet. Go! Velasquez yelled. Brill floored it. The Land Cruiser leapt forward. It hit the gate. Metal screamed. The hinges snapped. The gate swung wide, bouncing off the bumper. They were through. They were on the street. Brill turned hard right, tires smoking. He accelerated down the avenue, weaving through abandoned cars and burning trash. Behind them, the BTR crashed through the burning gate. It turned onto the street, its turret swinging to track them. They're following, Velasquez said, looking back. It's faster than it looks. It's heavy, Brill said. It can't corner. He saw an alley ahead. Narrow. Cobblestone. He cranked the wheel. The Land Cruiser slid sideways, drifting into the alley. Brill corrected, gunning the engine. The BTR tried to follow. It took the turn too wide. Its front wheels hit the curb. It smashed into the corner of a building, bringing down a cascade of bricks. It stopped, blocked by debris. We lost them, Velasquez breathed. We lost the tank, Brill said. But we didn't lose the eyes. He pointed up. A drone. Small. Black. hovering above the rooftops. They're tracking us, Brill said. He looked at the dashboard. The GPS was active. And they know exactly where we are. He smashed the screen with the butt of his gun. Where do we go? Velasquez asked. To the one place they can't follow with a tank, Brill said. He turned toward the hills. Toward the maze of the barrios. We're going up. Chapter 13. The main gate of Miraflores was a maw of wrought iron and reinforced steel, designed to stop a truck bomb or a mob. It wasn't designed to stop a 4-ton armored SUV, accelerating to ramming speed from inside the courtyard. Brill gripped the wheel of the stolen Land Cruiser. The engine roared, a mechanical scream that drowned out the gunfire peppering the rear of the vehicle. Hold on, Brill said. Velasquez braced himself against the dashboard, eyes squeezed shut. The SUV hit the gate. The impact was a cataclysm of screeching metal and shattering glass. The heavy iron bars buckled inward, hinges snapping with the sound of gunshots. The SUV shuddered violently, the front end crumpling, but the armor held the engine block intact. They punched through. The gate swung open, dragging against the pavement, sparking a shower of orange light. They were out. Brill fought the wheel. The steering was heavy, sluggish from the damage, but the truck responded. He swung it onto Avenida Urdaneta, tires smoking as they found traction on the asphalt. We're clear, Velasquez gasped, opening his eyes. We're out of the cage, Brill corrected. Now we're in the jungle. He checked the rearview mirror. The BTR-80 was still crashing through the broken gate, its turret swinging wildly. It was too big, too slow to catch them in a sprint, but it had friends. Where do we go? Velasquez asked. To the chaos, Brill said. He turned south, heading away from the palace, away from the military cordon. The streets here were a war zone. Burning tires blocked intersections. Crowds of protesters surged like a tide, throwing rocks at National Guard lines. Brill drove the SUV like a tank. He didn't stop for red lights. He didn't stop for barricades. He drove over curbs, through fences, using the sheer mass of the vehicle to carve a path. The checkpoints, Velasquez warned. The guard has locked down the district. We're not going through the checkpoints. We're going through the wall. Brill saw a blockade ahead. 2 trucks parked across the road. Soldiers standing behind them. He didn't slow down. The soldiers saw the black, battered SUV charging them. They saw the government plates. They hesitated. Brill hit the siren. A short, authoritative whoop-whoop. The soldiers scrambled to move the trucks. They thought it was a VIP escaping. Brill blasted through the gap before they could salute. That won't work twice, Brill said. He turned down a side street. It was narrower, lined with shops that had been looted days ago. Glass covered the street like ice. We need a new car, Velasquez said. This one is a target. Everyone knows the president's fleet. We need distance first. Brill checked the mirror again. No BTR. But he saw something else. Motorcycles. 6 of them. Weaving through the traffic behind them. Riders in civilian clothes, red armbands, assault rifles slung across their chests. Colectivos, Brill said. Rossi's hunting dogs. They are fast, Velasquez said. And they know the streets better than you. They're light, Brill said. Light brakes. The motorcycles accelerated. They split up, 3 taking the left flank, 3 the right. They were trying to box the SUV in. One rider pulled alongside the driver's window. He raised a machine pistol. Brill didn't wait. He swerved left. The heavy steel bumper of the SUV clipped the motorcycle's rear wheel. The bike wobbled, then flipped. The rider flew over the handlebars, slamming into a parked car. One down, Brill said. They are shooting. Velasquez yelled. Bullets pinged off the armored door. The glass was spider webbing, obscuring the view. Get down, Brill ordered. He slammed the brakes. The two riders behind him didn't expect it. They swerved to avoid hitting the SUV's rear. One lost control and slid into a lamppost. The other skidded past them. Brill gunned the engine. He caught up to the skidding rider. He nudged the bike with the front fender. The rider went down under the wheels. The SUV bumped as it rolled over the bike. 2 down, Brill said. 3 left. They were wary now. Staying back. Shooting from distance. They're hurting us, Brill said. Trying to push us toward a trap. Where? The highway. They want us in the open where they can use their speed. We can't go to the highway. We're not going to the highway. We're going to the barrio. Brill spun the wheel hard right. The SUV drifted around a corner, smashing a fruit stand. He aimed the truck up a steep, winding road that climbed the hillside. The pavement ended, replaced by dirt and gravel. This was the edge of the city. The slums. A maze of brick shacks and narrow alleys where the police didn't go. The motorcycles followed. They were built for this. Agile. Fast on the dirt. They're gaining, Velasquez said. Let them get close. The road narrowed. Walls on both sides. No room to maneuver. The lead rider pulled up tight to the bumper, firing into the rear window. Brill saw a turn ahead. Sharp. Blind. He didn't slow down. Hold on, he said. He hit the turn at 40 miles an hour. The SUV slid, the rear end swinging out. The motorcycle tried to follow the line. But Brill didn't complete the turn. He slammed the transmission into reverse. The SUV stopped its slide and shot backward. The motorcycle had nowhere to go. It smashed into the rear of the truck. Brill put it back in drive and floored it. 3 down, Brill said. 2 left. But the SUV was dying. Steam was pouring from the hood. The steering was fighting him. The armor was heavy, but the mechanicals underneath were screaming. We have to ditch it, Brill said. Here. Velasquez looked out at the shacks. This is Peter. They will kill us for our shoes. Better for shoes than for what you know. Brill drove another mile, deep into the labyrinth. He found a spot where a retaining wall had collapsed, creating a gap between 2 buildings. He drove the SUV into the gap. Wedged it in tight. Out, Brill said. Now. They scrambled out of the truck. Brill grabbed the bag with the extra ammo and the sat phone. Move, he said. They ran into the alley. Behind them, the last 2 motorcycles roared past the gap, missing the turn. They would double back. They would find the truck. But by then, Brill and Velasquez would be ghosts in the maze. Rachel, Brill said into his earpiece. We're on foot. Peter. Sector 4. I see you, Rachel said. Her voice was calm, a lifeline in the chaos. I'm tracking your phone. The collectivos are converging on the main road. You have a gap to the north. Guide us, Brill said. Take the next left. There's a stairway. Go up. Brill grabbed Velasquez's arm. Up. They climbed the concrete stairs. The city spread out below them, burning. The chase wasn't over. It had gone vertical. And the sun was starting to set. Chapter 14. The streets of the barrio were narrow, choked with the smell of unwashed bodies and burning rubber. Brill drove the stolen SUV with a calculated brutality, the heavy steel bumper scraping against the walls of the shacks that leaned into the road like drunks. They are closing, Velasquez said. He was twisted in his seat, watching through the shattered rear window. Brill checked the mirror. He didn't need to look. He could hear them. The colectivos were coming. 6 motorcycles. Maybe 8. They swarmed like angry wasps, their engines screaming in high gear. They weren't using tactics anymore. They were using rage. Brill had killed their friends, embarrassed their leader, and stolen a vehicle that belonged to the state. This was personal. "Hold on," Brill said. He saw a gap in the traffic ahead, a burning bus blocking the main lane, forcing cars onto the sidewalk. He didn't slow down. He aimed for the sidewalk. The SUV mounted the curb, suspension groaning. Pedestrians scattered, screaming. Brill clipped a fruit stand, sending oranges flying like cannonballs. The motorcycles followed. They were faster, more agile. They wove through the crowd, cutting the distance. One rider pulled alongside. He raised a machine pistol. Brill jerked the wheel left. The SUV lurched, its side slamming into the motorcycle. The rider screamed as he was crushed between the armored door and a brick wall. The bike disintegrated, metal and plastic spraying across the street. "One down," Brill said. "There are more," Velasquez shouted. "Right side." 2 riders were flanking them. One fired a burst from an AK-47. The round sparked off the passenger door, punching through the outer skin but stopping in the Kevlar lining. "They're trying to disable the engine," Brill said. "Or the tires." He scanned the road ahead. It was climbing steeper now, winding up into the hills of Petare. The pavement was broken, potholed. "Perfect. We're going off-road," Brill said. He saw a set of concrete stairs leading up between 2 apartment blocks. A pedestrian path. Too narrow for a car. Ideally. Brill hit the gas. He aimed for the stairs. "You cannot be serious," Velasquez yelled. The SUV hit the first step. The impact was bone-jarring. The truck bucked, tires spinning on the concrete. Brill fought the wheel, keeping it centered. They climbed. The engine roared, torque overcoming gravity. The motorcycles stopped at the bottom. They revved their engines, unsure. Then the leader, a man with a red bandana and a gold chain, gunned his bike. He hit the stairs, bouncing up, suspension compressing. The others followed. "They're crazy," Velasquez whispered. "They're committed," Brill said. "But they're light. Light bounces." He reached the top of the stairs. A narrow alleyway. He turned hard right, sliding on loose gravel. He braked. He waited. The lead motorcycle crested the stairs. The rider was airborne for a split second. Brill reversed. The SUV slammed backward. The heavy steel tow hitch caught the motorcycle in midair. The bike shattered. The rider flew over the roof of the SUV, landing in a heap of trash. Brill shifted back to drive. He took off down the alley. "2 down," Brill said. "They will not stop," Velasquez said. "Rossi pays them by the head. Then we make it expensive." The alley opened onto a wider street. Dirt, not pavement. Dust rose in choking clouds. 4 motorcycles were still behind them. They had taken a different route, cutting through the side streets to intercept. They were learning. "They're hurting us again," Brill said. "Pushing us toward the ridge." "What is at the ridge?" "A dead end. A drop. Or a kill box." Brill looked at the fuel gauge. Quarter tank. The heavy driving was drinking diesel. He needed to ditch the truck. But not yet. Not while they were in the open. He saw a construction site ahead. Half-finished apartment blocks. Concrete skeletons. "There," Brill said. He drove through the chain-link fence, flattening it. He swerved around a pile of rebar. The motorcycles followed. Brill drove into the ground floor of an unfinished building. Concrete pillars. Shadows. He stopped. Out, he said. Fast. They scrambled out. Brill grabbed the bag. Upstairs, Brill ordered. They ran up the rough concrete stairs. Second floor. Third. From the window, Brill watched. The motorcycles entered the building. They stopped near the SUV. The riders got off, weapons raised. They were checking the vehicle. Now, Brill whispered. He pulled a grenade from his bag. Not a flashbang. A fragmentation grenade he'd taken from the dead guard at the palace. He pulled the pin. He dropped it out the window. It fell 3 stories. It landed on the roof of the SUV. It rolled off, clattering onto the concrete floor in the middle of the riders. One of them looked down. He shouted. Boom. The explosion shook the building. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Brill didn't look. He grabbed Velasquez. Move. While they're deaf. They ran to the back of the building. Brill kicked a plywood board covering a window opening. They climbed out onto a scaffolding. They were on the other side of the ridge. The barrio stretched out below them, a sea of tin roofs. We lost them, Velasquez said, coughing in the dust. We hurt them, Brill said. But the pack is big. They'll call for reinforcements. He checked his watch. 12 hours. The airstrike was getting closer. We need to disappear, Brill said. Into the maze. He led the way down the scaffolding. Into the narrow, winding streets of the slum. They were on foot now. No armor. No speed. Just 2 men in a city that wanted them dead. The chase had changed gears. Chapter 15. The maze of Petare was a vertical shanty town of red brick, corrugated tin, and desperation stacked on a hillside so steep it defied gravity. Brill led Velasquez through a narrow alley, stepping over rivulets of sewage and piles of burning trash. The air was thick with the smell of unwashed humanity and wood smoke. Where are we going? Velasquez gasped. He was leaning heavily on Brill, his face gray with exhaustion. Deeper, Brill said. Where the bikes can't follow. He checked his earpiece. Rachel. Status. You're in the honeycomb, Rachel said. GPS is sketchy. But I'm tracking the collectivos on the thermal satellite. They're dismounting. Setting up a cordon on the lower roads. They're not waiting, Brill said. They're hunting on foot. Yes. And they have reinforcements. Trucks are unloading more men at the barrio entrance. 50 plus. 50, Velasquez whispered. We are dead. We're only dead if we stop, Brill said. He dragged Velasquez up a set of crumbling concrete stairs. They emerged onto a flat roof, jumping a gap to the next building. A woman was hanging laundry on a line. She saw them, 2 men dirty, one limping, one armed. She didn't scream. She just turned her back and continued pinning a shirt. In Petare, you survived by not seeing. Rachel, Brill said. We need a route. Something that gets us out of the box. The box is closing, Rachel said. They're moving up from the south and east. You have a gap to the west. A ravine. It cuts through the barrio and leads to the highway. Is it clear? For now. But it's exposed. If they have snipers. They don't have snipers. They have thugs with AKs. Guide us. Turn left at the next junction. Look for a blue water tank. Brill turned left. The alley narrowed until his shoulders brushed the walls. I see the tank. Go past it. There's a path behind the retaining wall. It drops into the ravine. They reached the tank. A rusted blue cylinder covered in graffiti. Brill checked the path. Steep. Loose dirt. Can you make it? Brill asked. Velasquez looked down. It was a 50-foot slide into a gully, filled with trash and scrub brush. I have no choice. Go first. I'll cover. Velasquez started down. He slipped, sliding on his backside, kicking up dust. Brill waited at the top. He listened. Boots. Shouts. Close. Over here, a voice yelled. I saw them. 3 men rounded the corner. Bandanas. Shotguns. Brill raised the MP7. He fired a controlled burst. 2 men went down. The third dove into a doorway. Contact, the man screamed into a radio. Brill dropped into the ravine. He slid, digging his heels in to control the descent. He reached the bottom. Velasquez was waiting, brushing dirt from his suit. They know where we are, Velasquez said. They know where we were, Brill corrected. Move. They ran along the bottom of the ravine. The walls of the barrio rose on either side, a canyon of poverty. Rachel, Brill said. Are we clear? Static. Rachel. Jamming, she said, her voice cutting in and out. They signal intercept. Say again. They have tech. Military grade. They're tracking comms. Brill froze. They're tracking the signal, he said to Velasquez. My phone. My earpiece. And your phone. And anything else transmitting. Brill ripped the earpiece out. He threw it into the brush. Give me your phone, Brill ordered. Velasquez handed it over. Brill smashed it against a rock. Now we're dark, Brill said. How do we find the way? We use our eyes. Brill looked up at the rim of the ravine. Silhouettes. Men running along the edge. Pointing down. They see us, Velasquez said. Bullets kicked up dirt around their feet. Run. Brill yelled. They sprinted. The ravine floor was uneven, littered with old tires and car parts. Ahead, a bridge crossed the gully. A concrete span connecting 2 sides of the slum. Under the bridge, Brill said. Cover. They reached the shadow of the bridge. Bullets sparked off the concrete pillars. They huddled against the abutment. We're pinned, Velasquez said. They have the high ground. Brill looked at the MP7. Half a magazine. He looked at the terrain. The ravine continued for another mile. But it was a shooting gallery. He needed to change the level. He saw a drainage pipe, 5 feet wide, set into the wall of the ravine, 10 feet up. There, Brill pointed. A sewer. A way out. Brill climbed the embankment. He reached the pipe. It was dry. He pulled Velasquez up. They crawled inside. The pipe curved, leading deep into the hillside. Where does this go? Velasquez asked, his voice echoing. Away, Brill said. They moved through the darkness. Brill used his tactical light, keeping the beam low. The pipe went on for what felt like miles. Then it ended. A grate. Light filtering through. Brill pushed the grate. It swung open. They emerged into a concrete culvert. They were on the other side of the ridge. The highway was visible in the distance. But between them and the highway was a shanty town. Dense. Labyrinthine. And it was swarming with motorcycles. The collectivos hadn't just chased them. They had anticipated them. They had surrounded the entire sector. They are everywhere, Velasquez whispered. They're searching, Brill said. They don't have a fix anymore. We're needles in a haystack. Needles that are bleeding. Brill looked at Velasquez. The older man was limping badly. His suit was torn. He looked like a victim. We need camouflage, Brill said. He spotted a clothesline between two shacks. Shirts. Pants. Rough local clothes. Change, Brill said. They stole the clothes. Brill put on a faded soccer jersey and loose trousers. He rubbed dirt on his face and arms. He hid the MP7 under a poncho he found on a hook. Velasquez put on a workman's shirt and a straw hat. Walk like you belong, Brill said. Shoulders down. Look at the ground. They walked into the maze. They passed a group of men drinking beer on a stoop. The men ignored them. They passed a checkpoint where collectivos were stopping cars. They walked right past, blending into a group of laborers heading home. It is working, Velasquez whispered. Don't talk. They reached the edge of the barrio. The highway was just across a field of scrub grass. But a patrol was waiting. 4 motorcycles. Parked in the grass. The riders were smoking, watching the field. They were blocking the only exit. Brill stopped. He pulled Velasquez behind a rusting shipping container. We can't walk past them, Brill said. They're checking faces. We fight. Too many. The noise will bring the rest. Brill looked around. He saw an electrical transformer box on a pole. Wires ran from it to the shacks. And he saw a puddle of standing water near the motorcycles. A leak from a broken main. The riders were standing in the mud. Brill smiled. Stay here, Brill said. He moved toward the pole. He climbed. He reached the transformer. He pulled his knife. He cut the main line. The wire sparked, hissing like a snake. He grabbed the live end with his insulated glove. He looked at the puddle. He threw the wire. It hit the water. Snap. Blue arcs of electricity danced across the mud. The riders screamed. They convulsed, muscles seizing as the current hit them. They fell, twitching in the electrified mud. The motorcycles sparked and died. Move! Brill yelled. He jumped down. He grabbed Velasquez. They ran past the writhing men. They reached the highway. It was empty, blocked by the military further down. But a car was approaching. A beat-up taxi. Brill stepped into the road. He raised the MP7. The taxi stopped. Out, Brill said. The driver scrambled out. Brill and Velasquez got in. Where? Velasquez asked. Extraction point, Brill said. The new one Rachel gave us before we went dark. The tower. The tower. Brill hit the gas. The taxi rattled, but it moved. They left the barrio behind. But the sky was darkening. Not with night. With smoke. The airstrike was coming. And they were still in the kill zone. Chapter 16. The cul-de-sac was a trap made of crumbling brick and bad intentions. Brill stood with his back to a graffiti-covered wall. Velasquez huddled behind him. The air smelled of sewage and the metallic tang of adrenaline. They have blocked the main exit, Velasquez whispered. And the side alleys. I know, Brill said. He scanned the rooftops. Silhouettes moved against the darkening sky. Men with rifles. Collectivos. They're not just blocking us, Brill said. They're hurting us. To where? Here. This exact spot. Brill looked at the ground. It was a dead end, 3 walls and a narrow entrance choked with trash. A perfect kill box. Rachel, Brill said into his earpiece. Status. Silence. Rachel. Nothing but static. A low, rhythmic pulse that sounded like a heartbeat. They jammed the signal, Brill said. Again. Or they found a way to intercept it. So we are blind? Velasquez asked. We're deaf. But we're not blind. Brill looked up. A power line ran across the alley, sagging low. It connected to a transformer on a pole 20 feet away. "Stay here," Brill said. He moved to the wall. He climbed a pile of rubble, reaching for the lowest foothold. "They will see you," Velasquez hissed. "They're waiting for us to panic," Brill said. "They want us to run into the open." He pulled himself up. He reached the roof of a low shack. He lay flat. He crawled to the edge. Below, in the street, the colectivos were gathering. 6 motorcycles. A dozen men on foot. They were laughing, smoking cigarettes. They knew they had their prey cornered. The leader, a man with a machete strapped to his back, was talking on a radio. "We have them," the leader said. "Sector 4. The dead end." He listened. Nodded. Understood. No prisoners. Brill slipped back into the shadows. "No prisoners," Brill whispered. He looked at the transformer. It was old, rusted. A spark jumped from a loose wire every few seconds. He crawled across the roof. The tin groaned under his weight. He reached the pole. He took out his knife. The ceramic blade wouldn't conduct electricity. He cut the guy wire supporting the pole. The pole leaned. The transformer sparked violently. Brill grabbed the main cable. He pulled. The pole groaned. It tilted further. Below, the colectivos looked up. "What is that noise?" Brill pulled harder. The pole snapped. It fell. The transformer hit the wet pavement in the center of the group. Crack boom. A blue-white flash blinded the alley. Sparks showered down like fireworks. The transformer exploded, spraying hot oil and electrified shrapnel. The colectivos screamed. The motorcycles closest to the blast were knocked over. Men scrambled back, covering their eyes. "Now!" Brill yelled. He jumped from the roof. He landed on a shed, rolling to absorb the impact. He hit the ground, running. He grabbed Velasquez. "Move!" While they're blind. They ran out of the cul-de-sac. The colectivos were in chaos, shouting, firing wildly into the air. Brill led Velasquez through the smoke. They ducked into a narrow gap between 2 buildings. "Where do we go?" Velasquez gasped. "Up," Brill said. "Always up." They climbed a set of stairs, cut into the hillside. The steps were uneven, slick with mud. Behind them, the shouts were getting organized again. The leader was rallying his men. "Find them. Kill them." Brill stopped at a landing. He looked down. They were coming. A wave of men moving up the street. "We can't outrun them," Velasquez said. "There are too many." "We don't have to outrun them," Brill said. "We just have to outlast them." He looked at the building next to them. An old schoolhouse. Concrete walls. Defensible. "Inside," Brill ordered. He kicked the door. It was locked. He shot the lock. 1 round. Suppressed. The door swung open. They spilled into a hallway. Classrooms lined the sides. Desks overturned. Papers scattered. "Upstairs," Brill said. "High ground." They ran up the stairs to the 2nd floor. Brill found a room overlooking the street. He smashed the window. He looked out. The colectivos were at the bottom of the stairs. They were starting to climb. Brill raised the MP7. He fired a burst. 2 men fell. The others scattered, taking cover behind walls and debris. "We have them pinned," Brill said. "For how long?" Velasquez asked. "Until they bring a rocket? Or burn the building?" "Until the cavalry arrives." "There is no cavalry. You said it yourself. We are alone. Rachel said the strike is in 1 hour. That means the airspace is about to get very crowded. 1 hour is a lifetime. It's 58 minutes, Brill said, checking his watch. He fired another burst, keeping their heads down. Then he heard it. A sound different from the gunfire. A low, rhythmic thumping. Helicopters. Not U.S. Not yet. Venezuelan military. A sleek black helicopter rose over the ridgeline. A door gunner leaned out. Rossi, Velasquez whispered. He sent air support. The helicopter turned toward the schoolhouse. Get away from the window, Brill yelled. He tackled Velasquez. The helicopter opened fire. A minigun roared. Bullets chewed through the concrete wall like it was paper. Dust and debris filled the room. We can't stay here, Velasquez screamed. Basement, Brill shouted. They crawled into the hallway. The helicopter circled, firing into the classrooms. The building shook. They reached the stairs. The collectivos were coming up. They smelled blood. Brill looked down the stairwell. 3 men. AK-47s. He didn't have a shot. He looked at the fire hose cabinet on the wall. He grabbed the nozzle. It was heavy brass. He threw it down the stairs. It hit the lead man in the face. He fell back, knocking the others down like bowling pins. Go, Brill yelled. They slid down the railing, jumping over the tangle of bodies. They reached the ground floor. The helicopter was hovering outside the front door, pouring fire into the lobby. Back door, Brill said. They ran to the rear of the building. Brill kicked the door open. They were in a playground. Rusting swing sets. A jungle gym. And a fence. Chain link. 10 feet high. Climb, Brill said. Velasquez looked at the fence. I can't. You can. Brill boosted him up. Velasquez scrambled over, tearing his suit, cutting his hands. He fell onto the other side. Brill followed. He vaulted the top. They were in an alley. The helicopter couldn't see them here. The buildings blocked the line of sight. Keep moving, Brill said. They ran. They reached the edge of the barrio. The financial district loomed ahead. Skyscrapers of glass and steel. The extraction point, Brill said. Rachel gave us a new one before we lost comms. Where? The tower, Brill pointed. The black one. With the helipad. That is the Torre David, Velasquez said. It is abandoned. Squatters live there. It has no power. No elevators. It has stairs, Brill said. 45 floors. Better than dying in the street. They crossed the avenue. Traffic was stopped. People were looking at the sky. The air raid sirens began to wail. A mournful, terrifying sound that echoed off the mountains. It's starting, Brill said. He looked at the sky. High above, contrails marked the path of invisible jets. The first missile hit. A flash of light on the horizon. A dull thump. Then a column of smoke rising from a military base. The strike, Velasquez said. Confusion is cover, Brill said. Move. They ran toward the tower. The collectivos were behind them. The helicopter was searching. But the war had just arrived. And for the first time, Brill wasn't the only one shooting. Chapter 17. The extraction point was a ghost story Rachel Vance had told Brill over a dying connection. A helipad on top of the Torre David, a 45-story skyscraper that had never been finished and was now a vertical slum occupied by squatters and despair. Brill and Velasquez stumbled out of the taxi a block away. The air raid sirens were still wailing, a mournful counterpoint to the distant thud of explosions. The first wave of the airstrike had hit the military airport and the comms towers on the mountain. Smoke columns rose like black fingers against the twilight sky. "Can you make it?" Brill asked. Velasquez was leaning against a lamppost, his face gray, sweat soaking his torn shirt. He looked like a man whose heart was trying to quit. "I have to," Velasquez wheezed. "It is the only way out." "Then let's move." They crossed the avenue. It was deserted, cars abandoned in the middle of the road as drivers fled the incoming bombs. They reached the base of the tower. The entrance was a gaping hole in the concrete, guarded by a metal gate that had been ripped off its hinges. Inside, the lobby was a cavern of shadows and trash. Concrete pillars rose into the darkness. Makeshift walls of plywood and sheet metal created a maze of dwellings. It was silent. The squatters had fled, or they were hiding deep inside, praying the bombs wouldn't find them. "The stairs," Brill said. "Where are the stairs?" "Central core," Velasquez said. "But there are no lights. And no rails." They found the stairwell. It was a raw concrete shaft, spiraling up into the gloom. 45 floors, Velasquez said, looking up. "I will die before the top." "You won't die. I'll carry you if I have to." They started to climb. Floor 5. Brill checked his watch. 30 minutes until the strike window closed and the ground operations began. If they weren't on the roof when the extraction team arrived, they would be left behind. Floor 10. Velasquez stumbled. Brill caught him. "Keep going," Brill urged. Floor 20. The sound of helicopters outside. Close. Brill moved to a window opening. No glass. Just a sheer drop to the street below. He looked out. 2 helicopters were circling the tower. Not U.S. Blackhawks. Bell 412s. Venezuelan military markings. "They found us," Brill said. "How?" "Heat signatures. Or luck. Rossi knows this is the only high ground left." A searchlight beam swept the side of the building. It flashed through the window, blinding Brill for a second. "Move," Brill said. "Away from the edge." They climbed faster. Floor 30. Machine gun fire erupted from outside. Bullets chewed into the concrete facade, sending dust and debris raining down the stairwell. "They're suppressing the building," Brill said. "Trying to keep us pinned. Or bury us." Floor 40. Velasquez collapsed. He sat on a step, gasping for air, clutching his chest. "I cannot," he whispered. "Go. Leave me. Take the drive." "I don't leave the package," Brill said. He grabbed Velasquez by the arm. He hauled him up. He put the older man's arm over his shoulder. "We walk together. Or we die together." They climbed the last 5 flights. They reached the roof access door. It was welded shut. "Damn it," Brill hissed. He looked around. Construction debris. Rebar. He grabbed a heavy iron bar. He jammed it into the doorframe. He pulled. The weld held. He pulled harder. Veins stood out on his neck. The metal groaned. Snapped. He kicked the door open. They stepped out onto the roof. The wind hit them. It was strong here, buffeting them. The city was spread out below, a grid of fire and darkness. The helipad was a concrete circle on the highest point of the tower, painted with a faded white H. It was empty. "Where are they?" Velasquez asked, looking at the sky. "They're coming," Brill said. Rachel said, 1800 hours. It's 1758. The Venezuelan helicopters rose up over the edge of the roof. 2 of them, hovering on either side. Door gunners leaned out. M60 machine guns trained on Brill and Velasquez. They have us, Velasquez said. It is over. Not yet. Brill looked around the roof. No cover. Just a few vents and a generator housing. He dragged Velasquez behind the generator. The helicopters opened fire. Bullets sparked off the metal housing. The noise was deafening. Brill checked the MP7. Empty. He checked the SIG. One magazine. Useless against a helicopter. He looked at the dead guard lying near the helipad edge. A sniper Rossi must have stationed there earlier, killed by the initial strafing run. No. Just a body. A squatter caught in the crossfire. Next to the body was a weapon. Not a rifle. A tube. An SA-7 Grail. A shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile. Old. Soviet surplus. Probably left by a militia lookout. Brill ran for it. Bullets kicked up dust around his feet. He dove. Rolled. Grabbed the launcher. He scrambled back to the generator. Do you know how to use that? Velasquez shouted over the roar of the rotors. Point and shoot, Brill yelled back. He checked the battery. Green light. It was active. He stood up. He aimed at the helicopter on the left. The one closest. The pilot saw him. He banked hard, trying to evade. Brill waited for the tone. Beep. Lock. He pulled the trigger. The missile whooshed out of the tube. A streak of smoke. It hit the tail rotor. The explosion spun the helicopter violently. It lost lift. It crashed into the side of the building, sliding down out of sight. A fireball erupted from below. The second helicopter pulled back. The pilot was spooked. He gained altitude, moving out of range. One down, Brill said. He dropped the empty tube. Look. Velasquez pointed to the north. A shape was emerging from the smoke clouds over the harbor. Low. Fast. A Black Hawk. Matte black. No lights. U.S. Special Operations. It flared as it approached the tower, coming in hot. The side door slid open. A crew chief waved them in. Go. Brill yelled. He grabbed Velasquez. They ran for the chopper. The second Venezuelan helicopter saw them. It dove, machine guns firing. The Black Hawk door gunner returned fire. A minigun roared. A stream of tracers connected the two aircraft. The Venezuelan chopper peeled off, trailing smoke. Brill threw Velasquez into the cabin. He jumped in after him. Go. Go. Go, the crew chief shouted into his headset. The pilot pulled pitch. The Black Hawk dropped off the edge of the building, diving to gain speed. They fell toward the city. Brill's stomach lurched. Then the rotors bit. They leveled out, skimming the rooftops. Brill looked back. The Torre David stood like a tombstone in the burning city. They were flying west. Toward the sea. Toward the fleet. Brill leaned back against the bulkhead. He looked at Velasquez. The intelligence chief was pale, shaking, but he was smiling. He tapped his chest pocket. The drive. We did it, Velasquez mouthed. Brill nodded. He looked out the open door at the fires of Caracas. Chapter 18. The helipad was an island of cracked concrete, floating in a sea of smoke. The wind whipped across the top of the Torre David, carrying the smell of burning aviation fuel and the distant thunder of the city tearing itself apart. Brill dragged Velasquez toward the roof access door he had kicked open minutes earlier. The intelligence chief was dead weight now, his legs failing, his breath coming in ragged gasps. We have to go down, Brill shouted over the roar of the Black Hawk's rotors as it banked away toward the coast. Down. Velasquez wheezed. 45 floors? No. Just 10. The second Venezuelan military helicopter hadn't crashed. It had pulled back, spooked by the American gunship, but it hadn't left. It was hovering a mile out, regrouping. And Rossi would have ground teams converging on the tower. The extraction point was compromised. Rachel said the strike force is inbound, Brill said. That means air superiority. But it also means this building is a target. It's a high ground command post. They'll level it if they see resistance. I cannot walk down, Velasquez said. He slumped against the generator housing. Leave me. Take the drive. We're not walking, Brill said. He looked at the construction crane that loomed over the edge of the roof. It was rusted, abandoned mid-lift when the money ran out 20 years ago. A steel skeleton jutting out into the void. And hanging from its hook 50 feet down was a window washing platform. Can you climb a ladder? Brill asked. Velasquez looked at the crane tower. Maybe. Good enough. Brill hauled him up. They moved to the base of the crane. The access ladder was rusted but solid. Brill went first, pulling Velasquez up rung by rung. They reached the operator's cab. It was empty, the glass shattered. Brill looked at the controls. Dead. No power. But the cable drum had a manual release brake. A heavy iron lever. Get on the platform, Brill said, pointing to the cradle swaying in the wind below them. I'll lower you. And you. I'll slide down the cable. You are insane. I'm efficient. Go. Velasquez climbed out of the cab onto the jib arm. He crawled along the steel beam to the cable. He slid down to the platform, landing heavily. Brill grabbed the brake lever. He pulled. The drum groaned. Russ shrieked. The cable began to spool out. The platform dropped. Brill watched it descend. 10 feet. 20. He locked the brake. The platform stopped level with the 35th floor. An open balcony. No glass. Swing it. Brill yelled. Velasquez understood. He grabbed the wire ropes and rocked his body. The platform swung. Once. Twice. On the third swing, he grabbed the balcony railing. He pulled the platform in. He scrambled over the rail onto the concrete floor. Safe. Velasquez shouted up. Brill released the brake again. He let the platform drop further out of the way. Then he grabbed the cable. He wrapped his legs around it. He put on his heavy leather gloves. He jumped. He slid down the grease-slicked wire. The wind tore at him. The city spun below. He hit the 35th floor level. He kicked off the wall, swinging in. He landed on the balcony next to Velasquez. He was breathing hard. His hands were cramping. Innovative, Velasquez said. Desperate, Brill corrected. He looked around the floor. It was an unfinished concrete shell. No walls. Just pillars. Why here? Velasquez asked. Because the stairwell is a choke point, Brill said. Rossi's men will come up the stairs. They won't expect us to be on the outside. He moved to the center of the floor. He found the elevator shaft. Empty. Dark. But there were cables. Service cables running down the side of the shaft. We rappel, Brill said. I have no harness, Velasquez said. Brill cut a length of electrical wire from a spool left by the squatters. He fashioned a Swiss seat harness. He tied it around Velasquez's waist. Clip in, Brill said, using a carabiner from his own gear. He rigged a friction brake around the main cable. Go. They descended into the darkness of the shaft. Floor by floor. 34. 33. 32. At floor 20, they stopped. Voices below. Shouts. Flashlight beams cutting up the shaft. They are in the stairwell, Velasquez whispered. And the lobby. We get off here, Brill said. They swung out of the shaft onto the 20th floor. This floor was occupied. Squatters. Families hiding in the dark, terrified of the noise outside. Brill put a finger to his lips. A woman holding a baby nodded, eyes wide. She pointed to the south side of the building. Fire escape, she mouthed. Brill nodded thanks. He left her the rest of his cash. They moved to the south side. An external metal staircase zigzagged down the side of the building. They stepped out. The air was filled with the sound of rotors. Not the Black Hawk. The second Venezuelan helicopter. It had circled back. It was scanning the face of the tower with a searchlight. The beam hit them. Contact, the pilot's voice boomed over a loudspeaker. Surrender. Back inside. Brill shoved Velasquez. Machine gun fire raked the metal stairs. Sparks flew. They dove back into the 20th floor. We're trapped, Velasquez said. They have the exits covered. They have the outside covered, Brill said. He looked at the floor. Concrete. But there were holes. Penetrations for plumbing that had never been installed. He found a large one. A duck chase. We drop, Brill said. Through the floor. Through the ceiling of the 19th floor. He dropped a piece of debris through the hole. It hit with a thud. 10 feet down. Jump, Brill said. He lowered Velasquez. Then he dropped. They landed in a pile of drywall. They kept moving. Down through the building's skeleton. Using vents. Shafts. Rubble piles. They reached the 5th floor. The noise of the street was loud here. Screams. Sirens. And boots. A squad of mercenaries was sweeping up from the lobby. Clear the floor, a leader shouted. Brill pulled Velasquez into a side room. We can't go down, Brill said. The lobby is a kill zone. Then we are finished. No, Brill said. We go across. He pointed out the window. The tower was connected to a parking garage by a pedestrian bridge. But the bridge was gone. Collapsed years ago. Only the steel girders remained. 2 I-beams spanning a 30-foot gap over an alley filled with burning trash. Walk the beam. Velasquez looked at the drop. I have vertigo. Don't look down. Look at me. Brill climbed onto the girder. He balanced. The wind pushed at him. Come on, he said. Velasquez climbed out. He was shaking. He got on his hands and knees. He crawled. Midway across, a spotlight hit them. The helicopter, again. It hovered at the end of the alley. The gunner opened fire. Bullets hit the steel beam. It rang like a bell. Move! Brill yelled. He stood up. He ran the last 10 feet. He jumped onto the garage roof. He spun around. Velasquez was frozen in the middle of the beam. Bullets chipping the concrete around him. Brill grabbed a piece of rebar from the roof debris. He didn't throw it at the helicopter. He threw it at the spotlight. The glass shattered. The light died. The gunner paused, blinded. Now. Brill roared. Velasquez scrambled. He threw himself onto the garage roof. Brill dragged him to cover behind a concrete barrier. The helicopter roared overhead, banking to search for them. We're out of the tower, Brill said. But not out of the city, Velasquez said. One step at a time, Brill said. He looked at the garage ramp. It led down to the street. A different street. Away from the main entrance of the tower. Can you run? I can limp fast. Good enough. They moved toward the ramp. The airstrike was in full swing now. Explosions rocked the ground. But the real danger wasn't the bombs. It was the man waiting at the bottom of the ramp. General Rossi. He stood by an armored car, surrounded by his elite guard. He wasn't looking at the tower. He was looking at the garage exit. He knew. He anticipated us, Velasquez said. He's a tactician, Brill said. Brill checked the SIG. 3 rounds. Stay here, Brill said. What are you going to do? I'm going to negotiate. With bullets? No, Brill said. With gravity. He looked at a parked car on the ramp above Rossi's position. An old sedan. Brakes rusted. Maybe. He moved to the car. He kicked the chocks out from under the wheels. He put his shoulder to the trunk. He pushed. The car groaned. Rolled. It gathered speed. It shot down the ramp. Rossi looked up. The car hit the armored vehicle. Crash. Confusion. Dust. Run. Brill yelled. They ran down the service stairs while Rossi's men were distracted by the wreck. They hit the street level. They were in the shadows. They slipped away into the smoke. Chapter 19. The sky above the tower wasn't black anymore. It was burning. Brill and Velasquez stood on the rooftop of the financial tower, 50 stories above the chaos of the streets. The air was thin, cold, and smelled of sulfur. Around them, the city was a grid of tracers and explosions as the U.S. strike force hammered the military installations scattered across the valley. It wasn't a surgical strike. It was a demolition. They're late, Velasquez shouted over the wind. He was leaning against a ventilation duct, clutching the drive to his chest. His face was a mask of soot and blood. They're busy, Brill said. He scanned the horizon with the thermal binoculars he'd taken from the dead mercenary. The airspace was crowded. Black Hawks. Apaches. Fast movers screaming by at Mach 1, dropping laser-guided munitions on comms towers and radar sites. But no extraction bird. Not yet. Rachel said the LZ was hot, Brill said. She wasn't kidding. An explosion rocked the building next to them. Glass showered down into the street. The shockwave hit Brill like a physical blow, staggering him. We can't stay here, Velasquez said. We're exposed. We stay. If we move, they won't find us. Then he heard it. Not the scream of a jet. The heavy, rhythmic thumping of a heavy-lift helicopter. A cartel bird. It rose up over the edge of the building like a prehistoric beast. A Russian-made Mi-17, painted matte black, no markings. Door gunners on both sides. It wasn't U.S. It was Rossi's private air force. Get down. Brill yelled. He tackled Velasquez behind the ventilation unit just as the door gunner opened up. Heavy machine gun fire chewed up the concrete decking. Stone chips flew like shrapnel. They found us. Velasquez screamed. They were waiting for us, Brill corrected. Rossi knew we'd go for the high ground. The helicopter circled, banking to get a better angle. The downwash from the rotors kicked up a storm of dust and debris. Brill checked his weapons. The MP7 was empty. The SIG had 1 magazine. Useless against an armored gunship. He looked around the roof. It was a flat expanse of gravel and concrete. No cover except the vents. No weapons. Except for the one the previous occupants had left behind. A dead mercenary lay near the edge of the roof, killed by the initial strafing run. Next to him was a long green tube. A man-pads. An Igla-S Russian shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missile. Stay here, Brill said. Where are you going? To even the odds. Brill waited for the helicopter to bank away. Then he ran. He sprinted across the open roof. The wind tore at his clothes. The helicopter turned back. The gunner saw him. The barrel of the heavy machine gun swung around. Brill dove. He slid across the gravel, grabbing the missile tube. He rolled behind a concrete parapet, just as the bullets stitched a line across the roof where he had been standing. He checked the weapon. It was armed. The battery light was green. He hefted it onto his shoulder. It was heavy, awkward. He needed a lock. He needed the helicopter to be steady. He popped up. The helicopter was hovering 50 yards out, level with the roof. The gunner was reloading. Brill aimed. He centered the reticle on the exhaust port of the engine. The tone whined in his ear. A steady, rising pitch. Lock. He pulled the trigger. The missile launched with a whoosh of hot gas. It streaked across the gap. The pilot saw it. He tried to flare. Too late. The missile hit the engine intake. The explosion was blinding. The engine disintegrated. The rotor blades shattered. The helicopter spun violently, losing lift. It dropped like a stone. It fell past the edge of the building. A second later, a fireball erupted from the street below. Brill dropped the empty tube. He stood up. Silence returned to the roof, broken only by the distant thunder of the airstrike. You got him, Velasquez said, standing up. He looked at Brill with awe. You shot down a helicopter. I used their own weapon against them, Brill said. It seemed poetic. Then a new sound. Fast rotors. Clean. Precise. A Black Hawk. It came in low and fast, banking hard over the roof. It didn't have markings, but Brill knew the silhouette. Night Stalkers. The side door slid open. A crew chief waved them in. That's our ride, Brill said. He grabbed Velasquez. They ran for the bird. The Black Hawk touched down, wheels barely kissing the concrete. Go. Go. Go, the crew chief shouted. Brill threw Velasquez inside. He jumped in after him. The pilot pulled pitch. The helicopter leaped into the air, banking away from the tower. Brill looked back. The roof was empty. The city was burning. But they were in the air. He leaned back against the bulkhead. He looked at Velasquez. The intelligence chief was clutching the drive, tears streaming down his face. It is over, Velasquez said. For you, Brill said. He looked out the door, at the fires below. The airstrike was just the beginning. The coup was still happening. The country was still falling apart. But the evidence was safe. And Brill was going home. He closed his eyes. Chapter 20. The briefing room in Homestead Air Reserve Base smelled of burnt coffee and floor wax. It was a sterile, windowless box designed to make people uncomfortable enough to tell the truth just so they could leave. Brill sat at a metal table, nursing a cup of coffee that tasted like battery acid. He was clean, showered, wearing clothes that the base quartermaster had provided, gray sweatpants and a t-shirt that said U.S. Air Force. The door opened. A man walked in. Tall. Dark skin. A leather jacket that looked out of place in Florida. Carver. He didn't smile. He pulled out a chair and sat opposite Brill. He placed a tablet on the table. You look like hell, Carver said. I feel like I fell off a building, Brill said. Which I did. Twice, Carver corrected. According to the after-action report from the Night Stalker's pilot. The pilot exaggerates. The pilot says you shot down a Mi-17 with a 20-year-old man-pads you found in a trash pile. It wasn't a trash pile. It was a sniper's nest. And the missile was surprisingly well maintained. Carver tapped the tablet. A news feed appeared. CNN. Breaking news. Venezuelan president detained. Military leaders announce transition of power. Interim government promises elections. It worked, Brill said. The airstrike decapitated the command structure, Carver said. Rossi's faction was paralyzed. When the loyalists realized the Americans weren't invading, just hitting specific targets, they turned on the narco generals. The president was arrested by his own palace guard an hour ago. And Rossi? Dead. His armored column was hit by a Hellfire missile while trying to flee the city. There wasn't enough left to identify. Good. Velasquez is safe, Carver said. He's at a black site in Virginia. Debriefing. He's giving us everything. Accounts. Names. Routes. It's the biggest intel haul in a decade. The cartels are going to be bleeding for years. He's a brave man, Brill said. Stubborn. But brave. He asked about you. Wanted to know if the ghost made it. What did you tell him? I told him ghosts don't exist. Carver reached into his jacket. He pulled out a heavy envelope. He slid it across the table. Payment, Carver said. Plus a bonus. Hazard pay. Brill didn't open it. He knew it was there. And Rachel? Brill asked. Vance is fine. She's been rotated out. Promoted. She's heading to a desk at Langley. She said you were efficient. She said I was reckless. Same thing in our line of work. Carver stood up. There's a plane waiting, Carver said. Commercial. First class. To D.C. Or wherever you want to go. I'm going home, Brill said. To Miami. My apartment has a view. For how long? Until the bruises fade. And then I'll answer the phone. If you call. I always call, Carver said. He walked to the door. Brill, Carver said. Yeah. Good work. Really? Just doing the job. Carver left. Brill sat alone in the room. He looked at the news feed on the tablet. The celebrating crowds in Caracas. The smoke still rising from the military bases. It looked clean on TV. A victory for democracy. A surgical intervention. But Brill knew the truth. He remembered the smell of the sewers. The sound of the executions in the library. The weight of Velasquez on his shoulder as they climbed the tower. War wasn't surgical. It was a butcher shop. And he was just the guy who cleaned the knives. He picked up the envelope. He stood up. His knee ached. His ribs throbbed. He walked out of the briefing room. Out of the base. The Florida sun hit him, hot and bright. He hailed a cab. South Beach, Brill said. He leaned his head back against the seat. He closed his eyes. The mission was over. But the world was still full of broken things. He still had work to do. The end.